Chapter 119. Miss Luo walked slowly. Qin Daoxian waved to Luo Li, who knew that the other party jumped directly into the sea and ignored him. Embarrassed, he withdrew his right hand. Qin Daoxian knew in his heart that he had just played a rogue once, and Luo Li was angry with him. His previous actions in the underwater world, not to mention in this relatively conservative world, even in his previous life, were enough for him to go in and squat for 7 days. Overwhelmed, Qin Daoxian finally understood the meaning of the word. But thinking of the bunch of lotus of creation in his storage bag, he couldn't care about anything at the moment. After identifying the direction, Qin Daoxian flew in the direction of Jianghu Island. Wait until Qin Daoxian returns to Jianghu Island again. It's already late at night. Fly back to his spiritual house alone. Come to his exclusive refining room. Qin Daoxian couldn't wait to take out the lotus of fortune from the storage bag. In the underwater world before, Qin Daoxian didn't have time to observe carefully. Now, after returning to Jianghu Island, Qin Daoxian found that there were some stars glowing on the white lotus of good fortune. See this little bit of starlight? Qin Daoxian couldn't help but think of the Xinghai layer of the Wangxinghai underwater world. The magnificent and unusual starry sky under the sea made Qin Daoxian feel extremely shocked. Throw out the distracting thoughts in your mind. Qin Daoxian picked up a lotus of creation. The Dantian pressure reducer he envisaged must be built according to the method of costing the magic weapon. Compared with ordinary instruments, the creation of natal instruments is just one more special step to fuse the master's blood essence. Just complete this special step. There is not much difference between ordinary magic tools and natal magic tools. Of course, fusion of blood essence is not an easy task, and the instrument must be adjusted according to the specific situation of the owner of the instrument to adapt to the fusion of essence and blood. Therefore, the craftsman who creates the natal magic tool must know everything about the owner of the natal magic tool. As an artifact refiner, Qin Daoxian, of course, made it easy for him to create his own magical artifact. Now the main material for refining the Dantian pressure reducer has been found. The rest is how to design this magic weapon. For this matter, Qin Daoxian, who has already created the magic tool of the Rongling furnace, is not inexperienced. He immediately injected a stream of true qi into the lotus of creation. Next second, with the injection of infuriating energy, the starlight on the lotus of fortune became extraordinarily bright. The more true qi is injected, the more radiance the lotus of fortune will emit. But no matter how much Qin Daoxian injected, this lotus of good fortune is like a bottomless container, accepting all Qin Daoxian's true energy. Qin Daoxian knew. This spiritual plant must have a capacity limit. It's just that the total amount of true qi in his current qi si is far from the capacity of the lotus of fortune. At this time, Qin Daoxian thought of another question. Wait until he builds the foundation. After the infuriating spirit tempered by the sword will transform into the real essence, the quality must be very high, even compared to the sword essence of the foundation building period. So how did Qin Daoxian determine that the Dantian pressure reducer he built could hold so much true qi or true yuan? This is no joke. If you can't test the capacity limit of this Dantian pressure reducer, when he builds the foundation he will face great risks. Think about it. He had to find a foundation establishment cultivator as a tool for him to test the specific tolerance limit of this magic weapon. Do not know why. What flashed in his mind was not a foundation building cultivator from the human race, but Luo Li. Luo Li is not only a foundation building cultivator, but also a late foundation building cultivator. It can be said that her talent is very good. In Luo Ziyuan's words, his daughter was born in the mermaid clan and was delayed. Otherwise it might be a cultivator of the Zifu period now. But I just offended someone and now I have to ask someone for help. Qin Daoxian always felt a little hard to tell. Forget it, build this magic tool first and then test its performance. Qin Daoxian shook his head and said, consciousness sinks into the sea of consciousness. 10 stardust revolves around the golden scriptures. Qin Daoxian took a deep breath and fused the 10 stars together. Next moment, the familiar epiphany came again. After a stick of incense. When Qin Daoxian opened his eyes again, he already had a certain grasp of building a Dantian pressure reducer. I saw him take out a lotus of good fortune. Use infuriating energy to engrave array patterns on its surface. As the pattern is inscribed, the aura on the lotus of creation continues to flow with the pattern. 1-layer pattern, 2-layer pattern, 3-layer. The array pattern is superimposed to the 3rd layer. The aura on the lotus of creation instantly collapsed. Failed. Qin Daoxian looked at the lotus of fortune that he had refined and discarded, and said with a headache, This control formation is simply too difficult to adjust, and it is necessary to control the absorption of true qi by the lotus of fortune, and ask it to feed back to the master. It is also necessary to control it so that it does not completely absorb the infuriating energy as its own nutrients. Finally, it has to be superimposed on other array patterns. Rubbing his swollen head, Qin Daoxian tried again. With failure after failure. The lotus of creation in front of him is getting less and less. 10 days, 20 days, a month. Time passed day by day. Qin Daoxian, who was immersed in research, could not find the passage of time at all. Even Qin Xinhe didn't even bother to go up to greet him when he returned to his family to get the flying sword in the middle. Half-year later. Refiner room. Qin Daoxian stared at the lotus of good fortune in front of him. This is the third time he has taken the spiritual plant material, the lotus of fortune, from Luo Li. The whole lotus of good fortune in the 3 storage bags was turned into waste in his experiments. But for so long, after countless experiments, adjustments, and epiphanies, Qin Daoxian finally finalized the pattern of this magic weapon. This scene. If other second-order refiners see it, they will be shocked. Because everyone is refining the instrument step by step according to the refining methods in the inheritance of the refining instruments, and Qin Daoxian directly jumped to the step of creating new instruments. Generally speaking, the craftsmen who can create new magic tools are all masters with extremely high level of crafting. And even such a master-level artifact refiner would not be able to create a magical artifact in half a year. Every instrument is created. It must be accompanied by the painstaking efforts of a refiner for decades or even a lifetime. There is no such thing as Qin Daoxian. It took half a year to come up with a magic weapon. Moreover, it is also a heaven-defying magic weapon such as the Dantian pressure reducer. Qin Daoxian couldn't be more clear about what this magical tool meant. Not only is he able to attack the legendary sword cultivator, but it also means that there will be no problem with the foundation of the Qin family's children in the future. As long as the children of the Qin family reach the perfect cultivation level of qi refining before the age of 60, they can all succeed in foundation building. And reaching the perfect cultivation base of qi refining before the age of 60, even the cultivator of the lower spiritual roots who enjoys the basic resource supply of the Qin family, there is no problem. Chapter 120. Refiner Room. Qin Daoxian looked at the Dantian pressure reducer he had worked so hard to build, and he felt a sense of accomplishment in his heart. This Dantian pressure reducer made with the lotus of good fortune as the main material is not a natal magic weapon, but an ordinary magic weapon. This is an experiment that Qin Daoxian used for his experiments. Since the natal magic weapon can only be used by the owner himself, naturally it cannot be used for experiments. As long as the experiment of this Dantian decompressor is successful, Qin Daoxian will be able to create a natal Dantian decompressor in the same way as a natal instrument. Until then, Qin Daoxian can confidently and boldly comprehend the sword intent, temper his true qi, and attack the legendary sword cultivator. Think of this. Qin Daoxian's fatigue from half a year of boring research on magical instruments was swept away, and his whole person was full of fighting spirit. Sequoia Island, Wanghai Pavilion. Qin Daoxian smiled and took out the Dantian pressure reducer he built and handed it to Luo Li. Qin Daoxian, this is what you said last time, looking for something for me to experiment with? Half a year has passed. The little grudge between him and Luo Li had long since disappeared under Qin Daoxian's mouth. Now he and Luo Li have resumed their former relationship. To be precise, it is still a little different from before. For example, Luo Li never mentioned calling his master again. Called him by his first name every time. Right? Qin Daoxian smiled and nodded. You just need to inject real essence into it. Luo Li took this magical instrument that looked like the lotus of creation from him, tilted his head and said, "What speed should I use to inject real energy into it?" Qin Daoxian thought for a while and said, "Forget it, you can come home with me." What? Luo Li was caught off guard by Qin Daoxian's words. But Qin Daoxian didn't care so much. He took her hand and headed towards Jianghu Island in the direction of the wind. In order to worry that the mortals of the family would see it, Qin Daoxian also took an invisibility amulet on Luo Li's body. It won't take long. Luo Li landed in the courtyard of Qin Daoxian Lingfu. Seeing the Lingtan in the courtyard, Luo Li's eyes lit up, and with a thud, he got into the Lingtan. "Stop playing, you help me test this magic weapon." Qin Daoxian was quite speechless as he watched Luo Li swimming happily in Lingtan. "Whoa." Luo Li got out of the Lingtan and said, "Okay, give me the magic weapon." Qin Daoxian threw the magic tool to her and instructed, You follow my instructions to inject real energy. For the first time, use your half speed to inject real energy into this magic tool. I will not call to stop. Don't stop. Know it. Luoli nodded, then looked at the lotus-shaped magic weapon in his hand with a pretty face and seriousness. Took a deep breath and poured the real essence in the body into the magic weapon in front of him. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. About an hour later, Luoli's pretty face was covered with fine beads of sweat, and the lotus-shaped instrument in front of her was also glowing red, as if it would melt at any time. Okay, stop. Qin Daoxian shouted. Hearing this shout, Luoli instantly stopped. How about it? How much real essence do you have left in your body now? Luoli carefully sensed the sea of qi in his dantian and replied, there are still less than 30% of the true essence. Less than 30%, Qin Daoxian murmured, considering that you are in Lingtan, you are always recovering your true essence. That is to say, the true essence you inject into this magic weapon is 90% of your Danshan's qi si. Speaking of this, Qin Daoxian's tone revealed a hint of excitement. I thought about it carefully. He continued, otherwise will you stay with me for a few days? What? Luoli blushed when she heard this request, feeling a little overwhelmed. That's right, the next experiment may be a little dangerous, so I decided to create a copy of the life spirit armor for you first to ensure your safety, said. Qin Daoxian looked at Luoli with a hot look in his eyes. Seems to be eyeing an excellent research subject. You, what do you want to do? Seeing Qin Daoxian's scorching eyes, Luoli was obviously a lot higher than him, but for some reason he felt a little scared. Don't be afraid, I'm just a cultivator of the 9th level of qi refining. Are you still worried that I will be bad for you, a cultivator in the late stage of foundation building? Who is afraid? Luoli bravely said. Just don't be afraid. Qin Daoxian's mouth curled into a smile. 3 days later, Luoli put on the life armor that Qin Daoxian tailored for her, looked at Qin Daoxian and said, tell me, what are you going to do today? Let's continue the experiment from the last time today, and still inject true qi into this magic weapon at the same speed as last time. Okay. Luoli, who was wearing the spiritual armor of life, took a deep breath and injected his true qi into the lotus-shaped magic weapon. An hour and a half later, the lotus-shaped instrument in front of me was already bright almost during the day, but it just didn't explode. Qin Daoxian felt suddenly. This thing really deserves to be a second-order low-grade magic weapon, and it can't even fill all the real essence of a late foundation-building cultivator. If it is promoted to the second-order high-grade or even the third-order magic weapon, then it is not against the sky. Think of this. Qin Daoxian continued to instruct. You restore your true essence first, we will continue later. Luoli, who was wearing spirit armor, didn't say a word, and went straight into the spirit pool to recover his true essence. After about 4 or 5 hours, Luoli, who had recovered his true essence, continued to repeat the experiment just now. Repeat this 3 times. In this lotus-shaped instrument, a cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment has stored 3 times the true essence. Okay, stop. Qin Daoxian felt that this experiment was no longer necessary. The late foundation building cultivator has 3 times the true essence, although Luoli's cultivation is different from that of the human cultivator. But no matter how big the difference is, it is at least 3 times the real essence of the monks in the middle stage of the foundation building of the human race. Luoli didn't seem to hear Qin Daoxian's order this time, and the speed of recovering his true essence was a little slower. Next moment, a colorless fire ignited on the lotus-shaped instrument, and then, a beam of light shot up into the sky and plunged straight into the sky. The shock wave brought by the beam of light directly sent the nearest Luoli flying out. Qin Daoxian immediately summoned the spirit armor. In addition, he was standing far away, so he didn't receive much impact. The beam of light soaring into the sky took 3 full breaths before it stopped. Cough, cough, cough. Qin Daoxian got up from the ground awkwardly. Compared to him, Luoli was even more embarrassed at the moment. It's just fortunate that he has the protection of his life spirit armor, and the beam of light just now went towards the sky, so Luoli didn't suffer any damage. See this? Qin Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. However, this courtyard is almost completely destroyed. Fortunately, all the young maids of the Qin family in Lingfu were sent home today, otherwise it is estimated that there will be no small casualties. Are you okay? I'm fine. Luoli flew up quickly, but the panic in his eyes could not be concealed. You'll be fine, don't be afraid, we'll move on to the next experiment. After, ignoring Luoli's terrified eyes, Qin Daoxian took out a lotus-shaped magic weapon from the storage bag again. Chapter 121. Twin Lakes Island Port. Qin Daoxian was a little embarrassed when he watched Luo Li flee back into the sea without turning his head. Seeing her like this, next time I want to find her for a similar experiment, I guess there is no door left. But the Dantian pressure reducer has finally been refined successfully. Qin Daoxian looked at the lotus-shaped instrument in his hand, and the whole person was immediately excited. According to this experiment, the result of Qin Daoxian's test is that this second-order low-grade magic weapon can store up to 3 times the real essence of the late foundation-building cultivator. Moreover, Luo Li injected real energy into it at the fastest speed of her own, and it did not affect it in the slightest. So to say, as long as this lotus-shaped magic weapon is refined into a natal magic weapon, it will definitely be able to solve the pressure problem of the expansion of the Dantian Qi when the foundation is established. Think of this. Qin Daoxian couldn't wait to fly back towards his spiritual palace. In no time, Qin Daoxian, who was flying in the sky, looked at the devastated Lingfu courtyard. Shaking his head, he flew in the direction of the refining room. Enter the refining room. Qin Daoxian took out a second-order high-grade lotus of good fortune. After taking a deep breath, he began to concentrate on refining his second natal magic weapon. Time passed little by little in the process of refining the magic weapon. Blink of an eye. 3 days have passed. I saw on a white lotus flower countless mysterious and unusual formation patterns mixed with Qin Daoxian's blood essence, slowly blending into the interior of the lotus flower. Both are integrated into the white lotus. Only this white lotus flower with a gleaming aura on its surface was left, spinning slowly in mid-air. It's done. Looking at the white lotus flower floating in front of him, Qin Daoxian was very excited. Seriously speaking, this is the second magic weapon he has created. To some extent, the meaning of this magic weapon is definitely not under the melting furnace. If the Rongling furnace gave the cultivators of the Qin family a shortcut to obtain a large number of cultivation resources, then this Dantian decompression instrument gave all the cultivators of the Qin family hope to build a foundation. To know, the cultivator's breakthrough in the great realm does not look at the spiritual roots. This is also the only fair place for the cultivator on the way to practice. In other words, there is no essential difference between the lower spiritual root cultivator and the upper spiritual root cultivator when breaking through the foundation building. Spiritual roots are only related to the speed of normal cultivation. In this way, a treasure that can increase the probability of monks building a foundation becomes very important. In general, the elite children of big families are in order to ensure that they are safe when building foundations. In addition to preparing foundation building pills for them, other treasures to assist foundation building will also be prepared to ensure that the elite children of the family are 100% successful in foundation building. However, this treatment is simply not universal. You know, the price of a foundation establishment pill is already as high as 40,000 to 50,000 spirit stones. If it is to make up for the last 10% or 20% of the probability of foundation building, the cost will even be a tenfold premium on this basis, reaching as many as hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. At such a terrible price, only the most elite family members like Zhou Mubai would use it. For other ordinary people, it is not bad to get a foundation establishment pill. However, the big family is no better than the small family. Because their foundation establishment dan can not only be purchased at the internal price, but also can be purchased from the family borrowed spirit stones. The consciousness moved slightly. The white lotus-shaped instrument turned into a ray of light, rushing straight to Qin Daoxian's Dantian Qi. Next moment, Qin Daoxian sank his consciousness into his Dantian. Discovered Dantian Qi at home. A small pair of spirit armor and a white lotus flower are hovering in the center of the Sea of Qi. The position of the white lotus is at the very center above the Sea of Qi, and the spirit armor revolves around the white lotus. It seems that the two get along very well. Air at sea. A trace of true Qi floated around the white lotus, like a white mist. But the white lotus did not have Qin Daoxian's order, and did not take the initiative to absorb infuriating energy at all. See this scene. Qin Daoxian was very satisfied. This lotus of good fortune was finally refined into a qualified natal instrument by him. Absorbing and feeding back infuriating energy all require the master to take the initiative to order, and it will not take the initiative to absorb infuriating energy and true essence as before. Think of this. Qin Daoxian immediately injected his true energy into the white lotus artifact. Due to the use of the second-order high-grade lotus of good fortune, the white lotus-shaped instrument refined by Qin Daoxian actually reached the second-rank middle grade. It is a small grade higher than the magic weapon he experimented with. Qin Daoxian knew that this was because his skill in refining magic tools was not good enough, and the formation patterns he created for this natal magic tool were not advanced enough. As a result, the rank of the instrument did not reach the second rank high grade. But in any case, a second-order middle-grade natal magic weapon is also the most valuable magic weapon in Qin Daoxuan's hands. Under Qin Daoxuan's order, the White Lotus madly absorbed the true qi in Qin Daoxuan's Dantian Qi Si. It only took less than a cup of tea before and after, and the true energy in Qin Daoxuan's Dantian was almost completely absorbed by the White Lotus. Watching the thief go to hollow out the empty Dantian Qi Si, Qin Daoxuan's slightly pale face suddenly showed excitement. The next step is to try to let it feed back the true qi to the Dantian Qi Si. Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian gave an order to the White Lotus again. Next second, a large amount of true qi rushed towards the Dantian Qi Si, and in a moment the Dantian Qi Si became full again. Seeing this scene, Qin Daoxian was a little speechless with excitement. In addition to acting as a Dantian decompressor when breaking through the foundation, this natal instrument also has an important function. That is to store infuriating energy and improve the durability of the monk's battle. Just think, if all the cultivators of the Qin family possessed such a magic weapon. During the battle, others thought that the cultivator of the Qin family had exhausted his true energy, but as a result, the cultivator of the Qin family gave the opponent a ruthless attack. What kind of picture would it be? Looking at the white lotus flower spinning in his dantian, Qin Daoxian became more and more satisfied. For this magic weapon, he spent a total of more than a year before and after. And most of the epiphany opportunities were smashed into this magic weapon. Even his own kendo practice as well as Professors Qin Daochu, Qin Daolian and others have been delayed. But everyone knows that Qin Daoxian is busy with a very important thing. They followed the foundation of Professor Qin Daoxian and taught themselves the knowledge of alchemy and alchemy. Especially Qin Daochu. After more than 2 years of training in refining, his refining level is much higher than that of young cultivators of Taoism. He actually served as the refining teacher of these young Taoist monks, and experienced the feeling of being a teacher in advance. Refiner room. Qin Daoxian stood up. He stretched his muscles and bones and a bright smile appeared on his face. What should I name you? Qin Dao looked at the white magic weapon in his dantian and pondered for a moment. 3 layers of lotus are 1 rank, but you have 6 layers. That is 2 ranks, so let's call you the second rank to create a white lotus. Chapter 122. With excitement, Qin Daoxian walked out of the Lingfu. En route, he saw a group of craftsmen repairing the courtyard destroyed by his experiments. After thinking about it, he walked towards the group of craftsmen. The family has been in charge over the years. Whether it is a mortal or a monk in the family, they are all deeply impressed by him, the young patriarch of the Qin family. See Qin Daoxian. Everyone knelt down and saluted him. Meet the young patriarch. Get up. When the words fell, everyone was lifted up by a gentle breeze and stood up involuntarily. Facing the patriarch, the immortal master, everyone was both respectful and awe-inspiring. After the salute, they all stood there dumbfounded at a loss. Let me ask you, where is your general, Chao Qin Beiwang? At this time, a man in his 30s stood up and said boldly, Master Qin has been busy building the clan, he should be on the construction site of the clan. Okay, keep busy. Yes, young patriarch. Seeing everyone bowing and answering the order, Qin Daoxian flew in the direction of the clan. Qin Clan School, also known as Chongping No. 1 Xiuxian Primary School. It has taken more than 2 years to build so far. Why is it taking so long? This is because the craftsmen of the Qin family presided over the construction of this school from beginning to end, and no monks were involved. The monks of the Qin family are basically a radish and a pit. There is simply no manpower to help Qin Beiwang build the school. In addition to building the school, Qin Beiwang will also build 108 independent courtyards as accommodation for the first batch of monks of the Fuzi generation. The locations of these 108 courtyards are basically built near the spiritual eye. This is also to facilitate the cultivation of the monks of the Fuzi generation. So much work. For the few artisans in the Qin family, it was already a huge workload. If it weren't for the fact that everyone had practiced martial arts to some extent and possessed internal strength, they would not be able to withstand such intense work at all. Fortunately, after more than 2 years, the main campus of the school was finally completed. When Qin Daoxian lowered his body, after seeing the large characters of Chongping No. 1 Xiuxian Elementary School written on the stone carving in front of me, I couldn't help feeling overwhelmed. Here will be the first cradle of the rise of the Qin family. Further back, there will be more and more such cradles. Consciousness swept away. Qin Daoxian found Qin Beiwang and Qin Daochu who were surrounded by the crowd. Qin Daochu seemed to feel something and looked at the flying figure of Qin Daoxian. Young patriarch, are you out? When Qin Daochu saw Qin Daoxian, his face was full of surprise. More than a year has passed. Qin Daochu also grew taller, and his cultivation reached the 7th level of qi refining, becoming a late qi refining cultivator. Seeing his rapid improvement in cultivation, Qin Daoxian nodded and said, "Yes, it seems that you haven't been lazy during this time." Hey. After finally being praised by Qin Daoxian once, Qin Daochu scratched his head embarrassedly. After finishing speaking, Qin Daoxian smiled and looked at Qin Beiwang with white hair, and said respectfully, "Qin Jianghu, you have worked hard." It's not hard, it's just a pity the old man only feels that his time is running out. I'm afraid that after the completion of this school, the old man will no longer be able to contribute to the young patriarch and the family. Speaking of this, Qin Beiwang's expression darkened. Don't say that. Qin Daoxian comforted, what you did is not a meager effort, your contribution to my Qin family is no less than anyone else's. If it weren't for you, day and night you would build houses for the clan, build bridges and roads, build schools and carry out all kinds of construction projects. My Qin family does not have the current situation either. Although you are not a monk, you have laid a solid foundation for the development of my Qin family. Speaking of this, he bowed his hands to Qin Beiwang. I will replace the family, thank you, heard. Qin Beiwang only felt his eyes swell, he couldn't help covering his face with his sleeves and he wept. Look at the gray-haired old man. Qin Daoxian announced in public. In the future all members of my Qin clan, as long as they make enough contributions to the family, can join my Qin clan ancestral hall and enjoy the family worship forever. What? Hear this. Qin Beiwang couldn't believe his ears. All along, mortals and cultivators cannot be placed side by side. This is the consensus of Wan Xinghai and even the entire world of cultivating immortals. In the eyes of cultivators, mortals are just reproduction tools, the most useless bottom layer. Whether it is production or force, mortals do not have any advantages, and can even be said to be a drag. Although there are tens of millions of mortals in the Zhou family, most of them rely on the monks of the Zhou family to guard and even support them. How can such a mortal be respected by a monk? But at the moment, in Qin Daoxuan's place, Qin Beiwang felt the respect of the immortal master who was above him. This kind of respect was something he had never experienced before. It gave him a shudder from the depths of his soul. I'm old. I'm thankful for the grace of the young patriarch. Saying that, Qin Beiwang with white hair was about to kneel, but Qin Daoxian stopped him. Qin Jianghu, this is not necessary. Qin Daoxian said warmly. Only Qin Beiwang was left in tears. A long time. Qin Beiwang, who was relieved, introduced to Qin Daoxian, young patriarch, look, this area under our feet is all built according to your requirements. Before Qin Daoxian came, he had already flew around the campus. About the appearance of this school, it has been done roughly. Listening to Qin Beiwang's introduction at the moment, the impression of this school in my heart is even more profound. In general, this is an elementary school that is very similar to Qin Daoxuan's previous life. Even the class division is very similar to the previous life. No way. The Qin family has limited teachers, and it is impossible to do one-on-one teaching. Only large class teaching methods can be implemented. Fortunately, everyone is a monk and there is no problem that no one can see or hear or the teacher can't take care of it. And there is another benefit of studying in large classes. It can inspire students to compete with each other. Let everyone be more attentive whether they are cultivating or learning all kinds of alchemy and tool refining knowledge. Coupled with the resource supply system provided by the Qin family, it is believed that few monks of the blessing generation will fish for 3 days and spend 2 days drying the net. Of course, if such a lazy cultivator really wants to appear, Qin Daoxian will not be polite to him. Just give up on him. In the future, there will be more and more monks of the blessed generation, and there are more than 100 people in the first batch alone. Qin Daoxian could not expect every cultivator of the blessing generation to become a talent. This is unrealistic whether in the past or in this life. Accompanied by Qin Beiwang, Qin Daoxian visited the whole school. The Chongping No. 1 Xiuxian Primary School cost Qin Beiwang a lot of hard work, and it is also the proud work of the old man. The only pity is that Qin Beiwang is a mortal and does not understand formation. In this regard, we have to invite Qin Daoxian, the formation, to take action. Qin Jianghu, then leave the formation to me, you just need to build the courtyard of the student dormitory. Follow your orders, young patriarch. Qin Beiwang bowed his hands. Chapter 123. The next days. Qin Daoxuan's practice became very regular on weekdays. In addition to teaching Qin Daochu, Qin Daolian and others the knowledge of weapon refining and alchemy. All that is left is to comprehend spells so as to improve his kendo realm. As time goes by day, Qin Daoxuan's progress in the Sword of Wind is getting bigger and bigger, until he has reached the point where there is no progress. On a sea surface not far from Jianghu Island, Qin Daoxian sat cross-legged in the air. In front of him, surrounded by two flying swords, it was Qin Daoxuan's two flying swords, Feishue and Qingying. Suddenly, within a radius of 100 zhang with Qin Daoxian as the center, a slight drizzle started to fall. The rain curtain connects with the sea water, making a rustling sound. This is the phenomenon of chasing the wind and covering the rain. In the rain curtain, one after another white marks shuttled indefinitely. This is the ultimate move in the sword of chasing the wind and covering the rain, transformed by the sword of Qingying. Compared with more than a year ago when I didn't get Zhou Mubai's swordsmanship jade slip. At this moment, Qin Daoxian used the white mark made by this shadow-bearing sword again. I feel that both power and speed have reached a new level. When the female cultivator of Izumo was beheaded, if she was in the realm of swordsmanship now, she would never have been entangled in the fight for so long. Up to 3 swords. It can split the opponent's true element shield. Feeling the white mark of the power reaching the limit, Qin Daoxian silently retracted the Feishue Qingying double swords. After integrating into the wind pattern, the power of the wind-chasing sword art has been raised to the limit, and now, only the water pattern is left. Qin Daoxuan's eyes burst into a ball of light. Time passes day by day. In the blink of an eye, 3 months have passed. 3 months, a total of 9 epiphany opportunities. Let Qin Daoxian cultivate a total of 2 first-order watercraft spells to a perfect state, and the waterway pattern has also reached a certain level. You can already try to integrate into kendo. Think of this. Qin Daoxian controlled the 10 stardust in the sea of consciousness and collided with each other. Next second, his consciousness flew higher and higher, and all kinds of insights about the water kendo became deeper and deeper. After a stick of incense, Qin Daoxian opened his eyes. So it is no wonder Zhou Mubai said that by practicing the sword art of Qinyuan Jianzong, in fact, everyone can finally comprehend the sword intent, but the difficulty of comprehending the sword intent is different. If I specialize in the wind-chasing sword art or the rain-covering sword art, I am afraid it will be even more difficult to comprehend the sword intent. Fortunately, the upper limit of the wind-chasing sword art is much higher than the single wind-chasing sword art and the rain-covering sword art, saving me the difficulty of comprehending the sword intent. Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian grinned happily. It has been more than 4 years since he obtained the ability to store his understanding in the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic. Qin Daoxian is now in his 20s. For years, he devoted most of his epiphany opportunities to comprehending kendo. In this way, only then can we comprehend the mystery of sword intent. This shows how difficult it is to comprehend sword intent and become a sword cultivator. This is also the reason why Guang'an sword immortal Zhou Mubai has such a great reputation and can be listed on the Zifu Tianjiao list. I saw that Qin Daoxian jumped up, fly towards the port of Jianghu Island. About 100 miles from the sea surface of Jianghu Island, Qin Daoxian sat cross-legged on the sea again. Feishue Qingying and 2 flying swords filed out from the storage bag. Looking at the 2 flying swords, Qin Daoxian showed a confident look at the corner of his mouth. He knew that at this moment, he was only a thin line away from comprehending the sword intent. At that time, the so-called half-foot stepped into the threshold of sword intent. In his eyes at this time, it was so ridiculous. At the beginning, it was just a practice of normal swordsmanship to the point where there was no progress. He never thought of using magic to comprehend the Tao, and he didn't even know how to integrate the Tao with the sword. And this time, a curtain of rain appeared again. Compared with the previous sword energy rain curtain, the rain curtain surrounding Qin Daoxian at this moment seems to be even more agile. Not only that, the next moment, a white mark appeared in the rain curtain. The white marks kept moving through the rain curtain, and at the end, the sword energy rain curtain suddenly disappeared. Between heaven and earth, all that remained was a new rain curtain of white streaks. The sword is like a breeze, the breeze is like silk rain, the silk rain sword intent, so it is. A smile appeared on the corner of Qin Daoxuan's mouth. Surrounding Qin Daoxian, there were more and more terrifying white marks, as if everything that entered this world would be torn to shreds. Next moment, the white marks suddenly disappeared, turning into a rain curtain of sword energy. The two change freely, making people overwhelmed. In the past, the white mark that Qingying's sword turned into was the biggest killer move of Qin Daoxuan's sword of chasing the wind and covering the rain. And after comprehending the Siyu sword intent, this biggest ultimate move turned into an ordinary white rain curtain. The power change generated by this is more than tenfold. Even more terrifying. Sword intent has the function of quenching the cultivator's true energy, true essence, and mana. Once Qin Daoxuan's true qi has been tempered by Siyu sword intent, the quality of true qi will definitely be improved to a higher level. He didn't know if it could be comparable to the real essence of a base-building cultivator, but it was definitely several times more than that of a normal qi-refining cultivator. Otherwise, Zhou Mubai wouldn't hold such a high regard for this kind of sword cultivator. Comprehend the sword intent and create a second-grade fortune-telling white lotus. Before the foundation was established, Qin Daoxian had already completed two things. The rest is to rely on the accumulated infuriating qi to polish it to a state of harmony. This is watermill work. It doesn't even require monks to retreat to monks all day long, and they can polish their infuriating qi bit by bit in their daily life. In fact, after more than a year of polishing infuriating, Qin Daoxian found that his speed of polishing his infuriating energy was relatively fast. A year or so at most. Should be high. You can achieve the state mentioned in Guiyuan Gong, where there is no progress and the state is harmonious. But, before that, he had to temper Danshan's true qi with Silk Rain sword intent. He worked so hard and wanted to comprehend the sword intent during the qi refining period. Isn't it just for this opportunity to temper true qi? In this regard, Qin Daoxian will never miss it. Return to Lingfu Courtyard. The courtyard that was almost destroyed in the last experiment was restored to its original appearance, and even Qin Daoxian made a little change according to his liking. For example, the area of Lingtan has been expanded by 3 points. Of course, if the area of Lingtan expands, there must be enough spiritual energy. Fortunately, there are not many monks in the Qin family now, and there is not much spiritual energy that consumes the spiritual veins every day. Lingtan can accumulate enough spiritual fluid. When the monks of the Fuzi generation begin to practice, it is not certain. It seems that we have to continue to advance to spiritual veins. Qin Daoxian muttered silently. In fact, neither he nor Qin Xinhe had thought that the development of the Qin family would be so rapid. In less than a few years, the first-order spiritual veins are somewhat insufficient. The reason for this is that Qin Daoxuan's family birth policy is too perverted. In addition to working all day, the male clansmen are covering their heads and making people, so that the family population has skyrocketed in recent years. It far exceeded the requirement that Qin Daoxian set for Chongping County Magistrate Qin Ji to double the population tenfold. Inside the courtyard, Qin Daoxian put aside his distracting thoughts. Wholeheartedly, he used the Siyu sword intent he realized to temper his Dantian true qi. Sword intent is illusory, colorless, and formless. But it is real. This was recorded by Zhou Mubai in the Sword Dao Jade Slip. Now, Qin Daoxian finally understood the meaning of this sentence. He only felt that his true qi was changing little by little under an inexplicable force. The rate of this transformation is slow but steady. Closed for 3 days in a row. Qin Daoxian finally refined all the true qi in his Dantian into a brand new sword qi. That's what he called this new infuriating. After a simple attempt, he found that this new type of infuriating energy was at least 3 times higher in quality than ordinary infuriating energy. Although it has not reached the point where the foundation-building cultivator's true essence is more than 10 times stronger than that of the qi-refining cultivator. But compared with ordinary qi cultivators, there is already a qualitative gap. And compared to the foundation establishment cultivator, his true qi is no longer so vulnerable. At least now let him fight against the female cultivator of the Izumo country. With the environment at that time, Qin Daoxian could kill him with a single sword. Chapter 124. Time flies. A year passed quickly. Because of the understanding of the Siyu sword intent, he crossed the iconic threshold of the swordsmanship. The obstacles in Qin Daoxuan's swordsmanship also disappeared. This year, Qin Daoxian was polishing his infuriating energy, and while teaching a few Taoist monks, he spent the rest of his time comprehending kendo. Moreover, as Qin Daoxuan's kendo realm became more and more advanced, he found that he was in a state of non-awareness, and his kendo realm actually improved a little bit with his enlightenment. It seems that as he comprehends the sword intent, his kendo talent has also been strengthened to some extent. This discovery undoubtedly made Qin Daoxian extremely happy. Although Qin Daoxuan's kendo has progressed like a fly, he knows that he did not rely on his kendo talent to get to where he is today. Although Qin Daoxuan's kendo talent is not bad, he can barely be called a genius in Qinyuan Jianzhong. But compared to Zhou Mubai, who could understand the sword intent at the foundation stage, his kendo talent was still weaker. Qin Daoxian couldn't fight against his kendo talent, but he couldn't stand his plugins. With the blessing of Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, to store comprehension ability, all difficulties were easily resolved. Comprehending the way of kendo is naturally as easy as drinking water. The Siyu sword intent, including the sword art of chasing the wind and covering the rain previously performed by Qin Daoxian, focuses on the word scattered. Sword chi turns into rain, white marks make the curtain. It reflects the word scattered in kendo. This kind of sword intent is most suitable for one enemy, and is good at group attack. But at the same time, compared with other sword intents, Siyu sword intent inevitably has shortcomings. That is the lack of explosive power. Of course, it's not that Qin Daoxian lacks explosive power, but that he is less explosive compared to sword cultivators of the same level. Therefore, the direction of Siyu Jianyi's next practice, Qin Daoxian called it combination. The so-called combination is to fuse the white-marked rain curtains into one. Wanting to do this is very difficult, at least Qin Daoxian has to comprehend Siyu Jianyi deeper to be able to do it. Qin Daoxian practiced for a year. Countless times of epiphany, it can only shrink the white rain curtain with a radius of 100 feet to a dozen feet. Then he seemed to have encountered a new bottleneck. No matter how he realized, the level of kendo would no longer advance. But Qin Daoxian knew that what he encountered this time was not the bottleneck of kendo, but the bottleneck of cultivation. To put it simply, his cultivation is too low, and it is no longer enough to support him to comprehend the more advanced realm of kendo. This kind of phenomenon of delaying the realm of cultivation is estimated to be unique in the entire cultivation world. In fact, not to mention that the cultivation realm delays the realm of kendo, it is a sword cultivator who can understand the sword intent in the chi refining stage like him, and it is estimated that the entire Wangxinghai does not exist. Otherwise, Qin Daoxian should have at least heard of it. And whether he is from the 3 lists given by Qinyuan sword sect, or from outside rumors, he has never heard of such a sword cultivator. The reason is simple. Even if a cultivator with such abnormal kendo talent can comprehend the sword intent during the chi refining period, it is estimated that he would not dare to do so. Because doing so is almost no different from courting death. This kind of cultivator, although invincible during the sword chi period, can even kill a foundation building cultivator across borders. And once the foundation is established, what awaits him will be death. This point is clear to Qin Daoxian, who has seen Zhou Mubai's sword and jade slips. Don't say anything else. He himself is in this state now, and whenever he thinks about building a foundation, there will always be a strong panic in his heart. A monk's sense of panic and whim does not appear for no reason. Whenever a monk has this feeling, he must pay attention to whether there is any danger waiting for him. Of course, Qin Daoxian had already made sufficient preparations for the foundation building. If he could not succeed in foundation building even with such adequate preparations, it meant that comprehending the sword intent during the chi refining period was a dead end. However, in order to make sure nothing goes wrong, Qin Daoxian still plans to go to Guang'an Mansion to buy another foundation establishment pill. Twin Lakes Island. In Qin Daoxuan's Lingfu courtyard. You mean you want to buy a foundation pill? Qin Xinhe took 3 steps and took 2 steps, stepped forward, firmly grabbed Qin Daoxuan's shoulder and said excitedly, "In just over 2 years, you have actually polished your infuriating energy to a harmonious state, really fast, too fast." Tears flickered in Qin Xian's eyes and then smiled. If you had taken Tong Mai pill at the beginning and you had the current cultivation environment, maybe your foundation building age would really break the record set by Zhou Mu. Looking at Qin Daoxian, who was already 21 years old, Qin Xinhe couldn't help feeling emotional. Whether it's 20 or 21, to me it makes no difference. Qin Daoxian smiled and said, "It's boring to argue about this." Yes, it's boring to argue about this, ha ha ha. Qin Xinhe laughed loudly. This was probably the happiest time he laughed after the family cultivated spiritual veins. The Qin family will finally have the first foundation establishment cultivator. With first, second, third, it's not far off. Qin Xinhe thought of Qin Daochu and Qin Dalian, who, like Qin Daoxian, were both cultivators of the upper spiritual roots, and they had already reached the 8th level of qi refining, which was only 1 step away from the 9th level of qi refining. Compared with Qin Daoxian back then, Chen Daochu and Chen Dalian seemed to enjoy the best conditions for cultivation at the beginning of their cultivation. All kinds of resources are endless. It is estimated that it is Zhou Mubai, during the qi refining period, it is impossible to be as extravagant as the two of them. Although the Zhou family has a great business, there are many cultivators in the clan, with hundreds of thousands of them. Therefore, it is impossible for the Zhou family to give Zhou Mubai so many resources during the qi refining period, even if Zhou Mubai is a cultivator of Tianlingen. Zhou Mubai's real rise did not depend on his heavenly spiritual root, but instead he realized the sword intent during the foundation establishment period and became a sword cultivator. This made the Zhou family put all their bets on him, and various resources continued to be tilted. So that Zhou Mubai was only 100 years old, and he became a cultivator of the Purple Mansion. You must know that the promotion of cultivation in the foundation establishment stage is much more difficult than that in the qi refinement stage. There is no such thing as advancing to several levels of cultivation in a year. In fact, during the foundation establishment period, a monk can advance to the first level of cultivation in an average of 10 years, even if the speed is acceptable. The path of cultivation is inherently more difficult the more you go to the later stage. Otherwise, there will be no monks with hundreds of thousands of years of life, but there is not enough time to cultivate and break through. 3 years later, Qin Daoxian and Qin Xinhe once again embarked on a journey to Guang'an Mansion. It was peaceful all the way. A month later, Qin Daoxian and Qin Xinhe walked into the Hongyin Feijin shop in Sangxiafeng City. Daoxian, you said that you didn't go to Zhou's auction house to buy the foundation establishment pill this time? Qin Xinhe seemed quite surprised when he heard Qin Daoxuan's words. Yes, I want to find an acquaintance to buy it. Qin Daoxian laughed. Acquaintance? Qin Ziyan's face was full of doubts. In Guang'an Mansion, the most energetic person the Qin family knew was Zhou Muqing. Qin Xinhe guessed that Daoxian wanted to find Zhou Muqing to buy at the Zhou family's internal price. However, doesn't this force Zhou Muqing to make mistakes? The Zhou family has strict rules, and their own people use the foundation pills which can be purchased at the internal price, but they are never allowed to resell the foundation pills and dig the corners of the family. Otherwise, if caught, the Zhou family law enforcement team will not spare it lightly. Thinking of this, Qin Xinhe hesitated. Daoxian, now my Qin family does not lack these 20,000 spiritual stones, why make it difficult for Brother Zhou to do it? Seeing that Uncle 13 was confused, Qin Daoxian smiled and said, Don't worry, Uncle 13, the person I'm looking for is not Uncle Zhou. Chapter 125. Limba Island. Inside a fresh and elegant pavilion, a tall, handsome young monk in a white robe sat on a stone bench and looked indifferently at the rain curtain in the Lingqi outside the pavilion. Behind him, a cultivator of the Zhou family in the late stage of foundation building stood with hand in hand. You mean Spirit Sun City is about to be built? Zhou Mubai threw a handful of Spirit Valley, which attracted the spirit fishes in the spirit pond to scramble continuously. Young Patriarch, yes. The Zhou family cultivator lowered his head. What is the number of loose cultivators lost in our Fang city? A lot of. The Zhou family's base building cultivator's voice trembled slightly. The loss of loose cultivators is about 30%, and it is still being lost. 3%. Zhou Mubai raised his head. Didn't the family also establish spiritual veins for the loose cultivators to practice? Hearing this, the base building cultivator behind him lowered his head, not knowing how to answer. Sure enough, the little guy said it. After saying something silently in his heart, Zhou Mubai continued, Where is the core business district? Heavy losses, a large number of stores have been withdrawn from the core business district, and the number of customers has decreased by 20% compared with before. 20%, this is just the beginning, alas. Zhou Mubai did not expect that the establishment of Lingrui City would have such a big impact on Guang'an Prefecture. Was about to say something. A beautiful maid walked in. Fushin bowed and said, Young Patriarch, there is a son outside asking to see you. Sir? Zhou Mubai looked at the maid strangely. He said you'll understand after seeing this. The maid said, took out a white jade slip and handed it over. Zhou Mubai swept away his consciousness and immediately saw Qin Daoxian who was waiting outside, and said with a smile, Please come in. Yes, young Patriarch. Seeing the maid retreat, Zhou Mubai waved his hand and said, Go down too. But, young Patriarch, should we just do nothing and watch Lingri City grow? The Zhou family cultivator in the late stage of foundation building said anxiously. Who said we didn't do anything? Aren't we building spiritual veins? Seeing that the other party wanted to speak again, Zhou Mubai waved his hand. Young patriarch, your subordinates retire. Watching his leaving back, Zhou Mubai felt a bit of a headache. The continuous expansion of Lingrui City has made more and more cultivators of the Zhou family feel dissatisfied, and the elders of the clan assembly have also continued to attack and want to do something to Lingrui City. Even with Zhou Mubai's prestige, he could no longer suppress these hardliners. Qin Daoxian followed Zhou's maid and came to the pavilion where Zhou Mubai was sitting. Senior Zhou. Qin Daoxian bowed his hands. Everyone knew that Zhou Mubai's eyes flashed when he saw Qin Daoxian. The figure disappeared in the pavilion in an instant, and in the next instant, Zhou Mubai appeared directly in front of Qin Daoxian. He pointed at Qin Daoxian, his voice trembling. You actually did it? Junior luck. Zhou Mubai took a deep breath and then heaved a sigh of relief. I really don't know whether I gave you this jade slip to help you or hurt you. This moment. Zhou Mubai couldn't help but feel very sorry. This kind of emotion is only when I see a monk who is more amazing and talented than him, about to fall in front of him. Senior, Junior, when he saw the path of sword cultivation recorded by Senior's jade slip, he was born to it. If he falls because of this, Junior will die with no regrets. After finishing speaking, Qin Daoxian stared at the other party with burning eyes. Hearing this, Zhou Mubai could hardly contain the admiration for Qin Daoxian in his eyes. He kept nodding his head and said, Okay. It's a good one to die without regrets. My generation of sword cultivators should be like this. Senior? Don't call me senior. Zhou Mubai raised his hand. Just rely on this sentence to die without regrets. You and I will be friends in the future. Big brother Zhou. Ha! Happy. Zhou Mubai laughed loudly. If you succeed, you will definitely be famous in the future if you die. Zhou Mubai lowered his voice. In my lifetime I will keep your Qin family safe. Hear this promise. Qin Daoxian stared blankly at Zhou Mubai and said sincerely, Thank you brother Zhou. He paused and said sternly, But before that, I have one more thing I want to ask brother Zhou. Come on. Zhou Mubai waved his hand. It's about the younger brother's uncle. Having said that, Qin Daoxian introduced Qin Ziyan's situation in detail. After listening to Zhou Mubai, he kept shaking his head and sighing, It's almost 100 years old, it's too late. If it's less than 65 years old as far as I know, there is still a kind of heaven and earth treasure that can be tried, but at this age. Zhou Mubai said, shaking his head. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian, who was full of expectations, gradually sank in his heart. As a cultivator, you have to get used to the people around you gradually leaving you. You must know that not every relative has such a gift as you. Zhou Mubai said with relief, Daoxian, life and death are inherently impermanent. If you don't become an immortal, you and I will have such a day after all, sooner or later. But when Qin Daoxian heard this, he was still reluctant to give up and raised his head. He said, Big brother Zhou, if there is an elixir that can help the older cultivator to forcibly open the sea of Dantian Qi, can't it help him build the foundation? Zhou Mubai shook his head. How can it be that simple? In your opinion, what is foundation building? Aura quenches the body, the sea of Qi expands and the true Qi transforms. What you said is just an appearance. Zhou Mubai explained, a monk builds a foundation. A deeper change is a transformation in the soul. Do you know why we call the Mahayana true immortal also the pure Yang true immortal? Qin Daoxian shook his head. Chunyang, it is talking about the complete transformation of the soul, and the foundation is the first step of transformation. Your uncle Qin Xinhe is not lack of Qi and blood, not to mention the lack of true Qi but the lack of soul. If the soul is insufficient, can't it be remedied with elixir? Of course it's not that simple. Zhou Mubai shook his head and said, If you compare a person to a candle before he is 60 years old, the candle is burning vigorously and after 60 years old, the candle gradually burns out. You use elixir to prolong life, you just add a fire to the candle but it has no effect on the candle itself. Hearing this explanation, Qin Daoxian's eyes completely dimmed. My condolences. Zhou Mubai patted his shoulder and said. After he finished speaking, he handed a foundation establishment pill and said, Although it may not be of much use to you, it can increase your confidence in the first line of foundation establishment. Thank you brother Zhou. Qin Daoxian took the foundation establishment dan and smiled with a pale face. Watching Qin Daoxian leave, Zhou Mubai sighed and said, He is another person who is very affectionate. It's a pity, it's a shame. Return to the Hongyin Feijin shop. Qin Daoxian adjusted his emotions as if nothing happened. Came back. Qin Xinhe reprimanded, I told you our Qin family does not lack these 20,000 spiritual stones now, so why should we owe human favors for this? You know, human favor debts are the most difficult to repay. Yes, Daoxian knows it's wrong. Qin Daoxian looked at Qin Xianhe, whose face was getting older, and said with a smile. Chapter 126. Sequoia Island. Wanghai Pavilion. You want to borrow my clan's spiritual veins? Luo Li looked at Qin Daoxian with a strange face, and immediately felt the harmonious aura on his body and exclaimed, "Ah, are you going to build a foundation?" "Right." Qin Daoxian smiled slightly. "Of course there's no problem with using the spiritual veins, it's just..." "Just what?" Qin Daoxian frowned. "Theoretically, as a subrace of the Qin family, the spiritual vein of the merman is the spiritual vein of his Qin family. It's just that Qin Daoxian used the borrowed word in order to show his respect for the merman." "No. Nothing." Luo Li saw Qin Daoxian's slightly dissatisfied face, and finally held back the words that were on his lips. Wuxia Underwater World. Demon Mountain. In the cave of Luo Shiyuan, the head of the merman clan. Several older mermen in the late stage of foundation building were talking to Luo Shiyuan. "Patriarch, the Clear Water Monkey clan, which is adjacent to our Devil Monkey Mountain, has repeatedly violated the border of our Devil Monkey Mountain and has hurt several members of our clan. Do you think they are?" Looking at the old mermaid who was older than him, Luo Shiyuan sighed. "The Clear Water Monkey clan is testing us." "Try." The old mermaid was stunned for a moment and then reacted, "You mean they know your injury?" Speaking of which, there was a look of horror in the old mermaid's eyes. Once Luo Ziyuan's injury is exposed, it will definitely be a disaster for the Mare people. The mermaid race can occupy the third-order spiritual vein of Demon Ape Mountain, all because of the shock of Luo Shiyuan, a late-stage cultivator of the Zifu. If the outside world knew that Luo Shiyuan was seriously injured and died, I am afraid that other races living near the Demon Ape Mountain would come to the door in minutes and tear the Mare people to pieces. As if thinking of something, the old mermaid hesitated and said, "Patriarch, you said that the Wu family is behind the Clear Water Monkey clan." "Heard." Luo Shiyuan thought for a while, then shook his head. "Guang'an Mansion has experienced the chaos of Divine Ju and the Battle of Zenangwan that year, which has led to the withering of high-ranking monks from major families today. The Wu family is the most affected family among them. They don't even have a cultivator in the Purple House now, so they may not be able to control the Clear Water Monkey clan as easily as before." "You mean?" "I'm afraid this is the idea of the Clear Water Monkey clan. They want our Magic Monkey Mountain. Compared with Wanxinghai under Qinyuan Jianzong's rule, the rules of survival in the underwater world of Wanxinghai are 100 times more cruel. Fighting against each other among various races is completely commonplace. Just like the Mare people occupied the mountain of magic monkeys after killing all the water magic monkeys. The Clear Water Monkey clan can also kill off the Mermaid clan and occupy the opponent's spiritual veins again. It's here. There is no order at all. Although Jinhai Palace is well known in the Wuxia underwater world, they don't care about the fighting among the various ethnic groups in Wuxia. Even behind the slaughter of the major races in the underwater world of Wanxinghai, there is a faint shadow of Jinhai Palace. At least it is guided by Jinhai Palace intentionally or unintentionally. Because only undersea aliens fight against each other, Jinhai Palace can better control the underwater world of Wuxia. Otherwise, if the major races of the Wuxia underwater world unite, wouldn't it be difficult for Qinyuan Jianzong to find it? For this, the various races in the Wuxia underwater world may not be invisible. But helpless Jinhai Palace is too powerful. In addition, the various races have been fighting for countless years, and they have long forged a feud. You can't stop just wanting to stop. A few people talking. Two figures flew towards Luo Ziyuan's cave. Consciousness swept away. Luo Shiyuan found Qin Daoxian's figure. Seeing Qin Daoxian as the patriarch of the subordinate race, Luo Shiyuan struggled to stand up and salute the other party, but his injury was too serious. At this moment, Luo Shiyuan couldn't even stand up, a simple action in the eyes of mortals. "Feel sorry." Seeing Qin Daoxian, Luo Shiyuan squeezed out a wry smile on his pale face, cupped his hands and said, "This old man has a feigned body, so it is inconvenient to salute to the Lord." After seeing Qin Daoxian, the other mermaids bowed to Qin Daoxian and saluted despite their different expressions. "I have seen the Lord." "You don't have to be too polite." Qin Daoxian raised his hand. Seeing everyone get up, Qin Daoxian looked at Luo Xiao and said, "Senior Luo, I am here this time to borrow the spiritual veins of your merman." Although Luo Shiyuan was seriously injured, his consciousness was not damaged. As soon as Qin Daoxian entered the cave, He felt the harmonious aura on the other side. Obviously, the other party wants to use the third-order spiritual veins of the merman to build the foundation. For this request, the merman clan chief naturally has no reason to refuse. But he seemed to think of something and hesitantly said, "My lord, it's not that the old man deliberately refused, but I, Mo Yuan Shan, have not been very peaceful recently." Talking. He explained to Qin Daoxian the fact that the Clearwater Monkey clan peeped at the Magic Monkey Mountain. Who knows, that Qin Daoxian pondered after listening to it? It's okay, it won't take a few days before and after I build the foundation. It's not so coincidental, just when I build the foundation the Clearwater Monkey clan will call at the door, right? Speaking of this, Qin Daoxian laughed himself. The two races were fighting, especially races like the Merman race and the Clearwater Ape and Monkey race that had Zifu cultivators in charge. It is impossible to die without thinking. Just like when the Mare people attacked the Water Demon Ape family, they also tried for a long time before deciding to launch a general attack. Even if Qin Daoxian has bad luck. In the process of building the foundation, the Clearwater Monkey clan attacked. But the mermaid race can't even resist the opponent's tentative attack. After all, over the years, the mermen have purchased a large number of magical tools from his Qin family. In terms of the strength of the Qi refining period and the foundation building period, no matter how you look at it, it is much stronger than the Clearwater Monkey clan with bare hands. Luo Shiyuan heard this. Also nodded in agreement. In his opinion, even if the Clearwater Monkey clan attacked the Demon Monkey Mountain today, there would be no problem for them to persist for 10 days and a half months. And this time, it was enough for Qin Daoxian to succeed in establishing the foundation. Think of this. Luo Shiyuan looked at Luo Li, who accompanied Qin Daoxian to enter the cave, and said, "Liar, you take the Lord to the Lord's spiritual eye of Demon Ape Mountain, and instructed to continue. These days my clansmen should not use spiritual energy to cultivate so as not to affect the Lord." Foundation. "Yes, Daddy." Luo Li bowed. Out of the cave, Luo Li took Qin Daoxian straight to the main spiritual eye of Mo Yuan Mountain. After a while, among the mountains of Demon Ape Mountain, a huge lake of spiritual fluid appeared in front of Qin Daoxian. In the underwater world, seeing a spirit lake sounds a little weird. But for the admiration in front of him, Qin Daoxian can only describe it with Linghu. Due to the influence of seawater, the Linghu here is different from the Linghu on the ground. View from above. The spirit lake of the Magic Ape Mountain is a huge mass of spiritual liquid, floating in the eyes of the main spirit of the Magic Ape Mountain. It looked quite shocking. Qin Daoxian stood in front of this spirit lake as small as an ant. Is this the main spiritual eye of the third-order spiritual vein? Thinking of the mouth of the Ling Tan formed by the Qin family's first-order spiritual veins, Qin Daoxian couldn't help but said, "Yes, that's it." Luo Li nodded. "With it, you don't have to worry about not having enough spiritual energy to quench your body when you build your foundation. This is not enough, this is simply too much. No wonder the third-order spiritual veins can support the foundation establishment cultivator to break through the Purple Mansion. Isn't it normal that such a huge lake of spiritual fluid can support the foundation establishment cultivator to break through the Purple Mansion? It would seem a bit extravagant to bring this spirit lake to build a foundation for him. However, the foundation built by Qin Daoxian is different from other monks in the Qi refining stage, and it is understandable to be extravagant. Otherwise, if the second-order spiritual veins are used to build the foundation, the lack of spiritual energy will cause the foundation to fail, and Qin Daoxian can't even find a place to cry. Chapter 127. Southwest Waters of Wuxia. A common Yang's cargo ship is smashing the wind and waves, sailing in Guang'an Prefecture. Cargo ship deck. Two monks who had just established their foundation were talking through voice transmission. "Brother, this Izumo country battlefield is really a treasure for me to wait for loose cultivators. If we get the inheritance of the Immortal Mansion this time, we'll return to the Izumo country battlefield. By then." The rough-faced man paused and his eyes showed hopeful eyes. "Not to mention Zifu and Jindan, they are Yuanying Jinjuan. You and my brothers are not too unreasonable." Hear this. The white-faced, beardless middle-aged cultivator, whom he called the eldest brother, was wearing a blue gown and looked like a scholar. I saw him with his hands on his back, looking at the sea, and said indifferently, "This trip to the Immortal Mansion is uncertain. You and I have just built the foundation. You must be careful, and don't be careless." If Qin Daoxian was here, he would definitely recognize that this rough middle-aged monk was the monk named Sun who tricked him into buying the treasure map of Shinjue Immortal Mansion. "Yes, big brother, I will listen to you, hee hee." The rough-faced man is simple and honest. Seeing the simple and honest appearance of his younger brother, the white-faced monk smiled and shook his head. Wuxia Underwater World. Demonic Ape Mountain Lord Spirit Eye. In the eyes of Luo Li's blessing, Qin Daoxian stepped into the spirit lake in one step. His whole body was soaked in the spiritual liquid of Linghu Lake. Dantian gases domestic. The Jinshi that had been tempered once by the sword intent had long since been polished and blended into one, and there was no way to enter it. Think of this. Qin Daoxian first took out a foundation pill and took it, and then according to the breakthrough method recorded in Guiyuan Gong, he activated the true qi in the Dantian Qi Si. Running with the exercises. The true qi in the Dantian Qi Si is like a spark entering the oil, and it explodes with a bang. This shock was so violent that it was 10 times more violent than the true qi described by Qin Daoxian's foundation building experience obtained from various channels. But Qin Daoxian knew that this was the price to pay for taking the road of being the strongest swordsman. Fortunately, the foundation establishment Dan, which was taken in advance, played a role at this moment. The violent infuriating was slightly appeased by it. But soon true qi began to transform into true yuan. This time, the terrifying true qi mixed with true essence scurried around in the Dantian Qi Si, and the foundation-building Dan was no longer able to appease. Qin Daoxian silently used the second-grade lotus of good fortune to absorb the violent real essence. In Linghu, countless spiritual energy rushed towards Qin Daoxian's body. A small part of these spiritual qi was absorbed by Qin Daoxian's body, tempering his body, while the other half rushed towards his Dantian Qi Si. With the support of an endless stream of spiritual energy. True qi seems to be endless, constantly being transformed into true qi. This moment, the transformed real essence began to rapidly expand the Dantian Qi Si. If Qin Daoxian's original Qi Si was only an inch short, then in less than 3 breaths at this moment, his Dantian Qi Si had doubled. Moreover, the expansion rate of the sea of air is getting faster and faster. See this scene. Qin Daoxian's complexion suddenly changed. If things go on like this, the insanely soaring real essence will definitely burst his Dantian Qi Si. Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian ordered the second-rank good fortune white lotus in the center of Dantian to frantically absorb true yuan. This moment, a strange painting style appeared in Qin Daoxian's Dantian Qi Si. On the one hand, the outside world was madly instilling spiritual energy into his Dantian, which he refined into true energy and transformed into true essence. And the madly soaring true energy was still expanding his Dantian Qi Si. On the other side, in the center of the Dantian Qi Si, there is another lotus-shaped instrument, which is constantly absorbing the skyrocketing true qi, preventing it from expanding the Qi Si so violently. This time, with the help of the second-grade lucky white lotus, the speed of Qin Daoxian's expansion of the Dantian Qi Si quickly decreased by a large margin and returned to a relatively stable state. See this? Qin Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, during the qi refining stage, the most feared thing for cultivators to build a foundation is that after the true qi is converted into true yuan, it will slam into the Dantian Qi Si, bursting the Qi Si. After all, the true essence that belongs to the foundation building stage, how can the Dantian Qi Si in the qi refining stage be accepted? And the function of the foundation establishment pill is to appease the transformed real essence and make it less violent. But at the moment, for Qin Daoxian, the foundation establishment pill had no effect now, except to appease the violent infuriating qi at the beginning. The only thing that is useful to him now is the white lotus flower in his Dantian Qi Si. You must hold on. Qin Daoxian said silently in his heart. In Linghu, around Qin Daoxian, the terrifying aura formed a huge aura vortex. Around the vortex, a large amount of spiritual liquefaction turned into aura, which was absorbed by Qin Daoxian. At the same time, new spiritual fluids are constantly being replenished, maintaining the consumption of Qin Daoxian's foundation building. It's not just the change in the sea of qi in Dantian. Qin Daoxian's physical body, also under such a huge aura-quenched body, began to strengthen little by little. Fortunately, Qin Daoxian has practiced body-refining exercises all year round, and his physical strength far exceeds that of ordinary qi cultivating monks. Even compared with most of the foundation establishment cultivators, Qin Daoxian's physical strength far exceeds them. Thus, the first difficulty in his foundation building, spiritual energy quenching, was the easiest level for him. Luo Li looked at the expression on Qin Daoxian's face in the Linghu Lake, and the expression on Qin Daoxian's face was ferocious at first, and then returned to indifference. She knew that Qin Daoxian had definitely passed the most difficult level. Next, Just choose a breakthrough step by step. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on Luo Liqiu's face, and she sat quietly on the stone beside her, protecting Qin Daoxian. Time passes day by day. Blink of an eye. A month has passed. This time. Fortunately, Qin Daoxian chose to break through the third-order spiritual meridian. If he chose the second-order spiritual meridian, this breakthrough would definitely encounter the problem of insufficient spiritual energy. Because the aura lake outside him has dried up nearly half. So many spiritual qi, all turned into Qin Daoxian's body to temper his body and expand his qi si. Of course. More importantly, it is the transformation of the soul. It's just that Qin Daoxian can't see the transformation of his soul, and he can't even perceive it. He can only perceive that his sea of consciousness is expanding, and his consciousness is increasing step by step. At this moment he has not completely broken through to the foundation establishment stage, but he found that the range of his divine consciousness has exceeded the radius of the cultivator on the first floor of the foundation establishment. And this range is still expanding. This also means that the transformation of Qin Daoxian's sea of consciousness is no less than that of his Dantian Qi Si. It is also thanks to Qin Daoxian's sea of knowledge that he is guarded by the Hongmeng Enlightenment scripture. Otherwise Qin Daoxian will definitely fail in building the foundation this time. Because the foundation building is by no means the change in the sea of qi he imagined. There are also changes in the sea of consciousness. The reason why other qi refining cultivators did not encounter the difficulty of expanding the sea of consciousness was because the expansion of the sea of consciousness was far less terrifying than that of Qin Daoxian. Ordinary qi cultivator builds a foundation, and the range of divine consciousness can be transformed from a radius of 1 mile to a radius of 10 miles, which is basically the limit. And Qin Daoxian at this moment, the range of divine consciousness has almost reached a radius of more than 30 miles. This is already the strength of the spiritual consciousness of the late Foundation establishment monks, and what is even more terrifying is that his spiritual consciousness continues to increase. For monks, whether it is true qi or spiritual consciousness, it will not increase for no reason, it must be consumed. For example, infuriating energy consumes spiritual energy to gain enhancement, and the consumption of spiritual consciousness enhancement is relatively obscure. Many monks don't even know it. In fact, the enhancement of divine consciousness is closely related to divine soul. The stronger the soul, the bigger the sea of consciousness, and the stronger the consciousness. The transformation of the soul is closely related to the cultivation of the monk. Therefore, after the general cultivator breaks through, the consciousness will be greatly enhanced, which is the reason. Qin Daoxian's foundation building this time, due to the influence of the Siyu Sword Intent and the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, the degree of spiritual transformation is far more exaggerated than that of ordinary monks. As such, not only is Qin Daoxian's Qi Si expanding rapidly, the expansion of his consciousness Si is no less than his Qi Si. Even because of the existence of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, it is even more perverted. With the continuous expansion of the sea of consciousness space, the invisible and intangible consciousness is also increasing. Outside Linghu, this month, Luo Li has always been the guardian of Qin Daoxian. Sudden. Luo Li, who was closing his eyes and resting, suddenly opened his eyes. She frowned, looked at the female clansman flying towards her, and asked, "What's the matter?" Princess E, the Clear Water Monkey clan invaded the Demon Monkey Mountain, and they are calling the formation outside the main vein at the moment. After the female merman arrived, she hurriedly said. Chapter 128, Heard. Luo Li glanced at Qin Daoxian and Linghu, and the eyes in her beautiful eyes gradually became firm. She shook her head at the female merman who came over and said, "Shaoqing, go back first, don't worry about me. However, the Clear Water Monkey clan may send a small group of soldiers to harass them from the rear at any time, and they will definitely pass through this place at that time. Her Royal Highness, it will be very dangerous for you to stay here. Is it worth it for this human race?" The female merman named Shaoqing said anxiously. Is it worth it? In the underwater world, fighting, escaping, and fighting again have almost become the daily life of the mere people. For the sake of a human race, it is possible to throw a small life here. Is it worth it? Certainly not worth it to any shark. But for Lori, she didn't want to see this special person to her die. Just like when she saw her mother fall in front of her, she couldn't do anything. This feeling of powerlessness, she never wants to try again. Think of this. Luo Li took out 2 scarlet shadow swords and held them horizontally in his hands. On the delicate body, the spirit armor of life appeared. She looked at Shaoqing firmly and replied with one word, It's worth it. Who knows? After Xiaoqing heard this, the frowning brows gradually loosened. She sighed, then raised her head and said, "Since Her Royal Highness the Princess will not leave, then I will not leave either." "Xiaoqing, you?" Xiaoqing shook her head and said with a smile, "Your Highness Princess, you don't need to say anything." Seeing her maid's appearance, Luoli showed a smile. "Good sister, it's just death." "Well, it's just death." In Linghu, Qin Daoxuan's Dantian Qi Si seems to have expanded to the limit. The rate of expansion gradually slowed down. See this scene. Qin Daoxian simply let go of the second-grade good fortune Bailian's absorption of true yuan. Immediately, the expansion of the Dantian Qi Si suddenly dashed once again. In the end, he remained motionless, unable to expand any further. To the limit, Qin Daoxian secretly said in his heart. Not only Dantian Qi Si, but his consciousness Si is at least 100 times larger than before. That seems a little inaccurate. When the cultivator first came into contact with cultivation during the Qi refining period, it is equivalent to lighting a glimmer of light in the sea of knowledge. Except for the place illuminated by this shimmering light, the sea of knowledge is completely dark. And now, Qin Daoxuan's sea of consciousness was bright. The range that was illuminated was at least 100 times wider than during the Qi refining period. This is undoubtedly abnormal. During the normal Qi refining period, when a monk builds a foundation, it is not bad to expand the sea of consciousness tenfold. It is generally manifested in the range of divine consciousness, which expands from a radius of 1 mile to a radius of 10 miles. At this moment, Qin Daoxuan's divine consciousness covers the area. He immediately swept away his consciousness. 100 miles. Qin Daoxian took a deep breath. Doesn't this mean that my current consciousness is comparable to that of a cultivator in the Zifu? Think of this. Qin Daoxian couldn't help but look at the golden scripture in the center of the sea of knowledge. Is it? Although the comprehension of the sword intent will also increase the cultivator's consciousness to a certain extent, the more important function is to temper the cultivator's true energy, and the increase in the consciousness of the cultivator is far less terrifying. Only the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic. Perhaps. This Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic also has many functions that he does not understand. It's just that his cultivation is too low now. He has only just established the foundation and he can't find it at all. For now, Qin Daoxian discovered only 3 functions. First, restore consciousness. Second, and most importantly, store understanding. Third, help him expand the sea of consciousness when his cultivation base breaks through. However, at this moment, Qin Daoxian couldn't care about so much. Because he discovered that the Silk Rain sword intent that he had comprehended actually entered a brand new situation with the breakthrough of his cultivation base, like a wild horse running away. The realm of swordsmanship of swordsmen is actually greatly restricted by the cultivation base. When a cultivator is at a higher level, it is much easier to comprehend the sword intent than when he is at a lower level. Just like Yang Gongwan, the arrogance of the Yang family, if she chooses to break through the Zifu period, she will immediately understand the sword intent. Instead of standing still before the threshold of sword intent like it is now. But at the same time, the sooner a monk realizes the sword intent, the greater the benefit. For example, in the foundation establishment period, if you understand the sword intent, you can only refine true essence once. And a monk like Qin Daoxian has one more chance to temper his true qi than a cultivator who comprehends the sword intent at the foundation building stage. This opportunity is exactly what all the sword cultivators in the world dream of. Zhoumubai mentioned it repeatedly in the Sword Dao Jade slip, and the envy in his eyes was the state of Qin Daoxian at the moment. Of course, comprehension of different sword intents not only focuses on different aspects, but also has different degrees of comprehension of sword intent, and also increases the cultivator's combat power differently. When cultivators first comprehend the sword intent, they are all invisible. I know it exists but I can't feel it, let alone touch it. And the second stage of sword intent. Zhoumubai called it the tangible stage. The transformation from intangible to tangible is the second realm of sword intent. Zhoumubai is now in this state. In this moment, Qin Daoxian discovered that the Siyu sword intent that he had understood had soared a lot with the suppression of his cultivation base. He even saw a trace of starlight in his dantian. This is the Siyu sword intent that I realized? Qin Daoxian muttered. This starlight flickered and dimmed as if it could be extinguished at any time, but it really existed, at least Qin Daoxian could perceive it. It's not like when I just realized the Siyu sword intent. Imperceptible at all. Ha 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 ha. Seeing this, Qin Daoxian, who was immersed in kendo, couldn't help but let out a cheerful laugh. Really? Once a breakthrough, clear the clouds and see the sun. At this moment he has a feeling of clearing the clouds and seeing the sun. Qin Daoxian took a deep breath. Immediately he used the invisible starlight in his Dantian Qi to refine his true essence for the second time. At the beginning, when he first tempered true Qi, the quality of true Qi increased by about 3 times. After breaking through the foundation building, true Qi turned into true Yuan, and the quality increased tenfold. Now, for the second time he tempered his true essence. As the true essence of Dantian Qi was tempered little by Qin Daoxian found that after the true essence was transformed into sword essence, the quality actually increased threefold. In other words, the quality of his current true Qi is 90 times higher than the true Qi he had when he didn't understand the sword intent at first. This is a qualitative change. There is no quantitative change yet. Of course, the other monks in the Qi refinement stage were far less terrifying than him. After the ordinary Qi refining cultivator successfully established the foundation, the true Qi was transformed into the true essence, and the qualitative increase was about 10 times. That is, 1 true essence is comparable to 10 true Qi. Even if the foundation building period attribute exercises are converted in the future, the power of the real essence will only increase to about 30% to 70% or 80% with the attribute bonus. Calculate like this. Ordinary cultivators can at most achieve a quality that is more than 10 times higher than that of true Qi. Far from the exaggeration of Qin Daoxian's 90 times. In other words, Qin Daoxian's current real yuan is about 7 or 8 times that of a foundation-building cultivator who has practiced attribute exercises. What is this concept? In terms of quality, the mana of the Zifu cultivator is about 10 times that of the cultivator's true essence in the later stage of foundation establishment. Qin Daoxian's current real yuan is 7 or 8 times the quality of the monk's real yuan in the early stage of foundation building. That is, 3 or 4 times the true essence of a cultivator in the later stage of foundation establishment. In other words, his current true yuan strength is comparable to the mana of the most common Zifu cultivator. When he converts to the attribute cultivation technique in the future, the real energy power can be increased by 70% to 80% at most. At that time, his true essence was comparable to 70% to 80% of the most common Zifu cultivator's mana. When he reaches the late stage of foundation establishment, the true essence will be stronger than the mana of other Zifu cultivators. This is also the reason why Zhou Mubai is obsessed with this path of sword cultivation. Because the basic strength of this sword repair is really too strong. Chapter 129. In Linghu, Qin Daoxian is concentrating on refining his true essence. There are new changes in the outside world. As expected by the female merman named Xiaoqing, the Clear Water Monkey clan really sent a team of elites from the rear to test the truth of the mermaid clan. Although the patriarch of the Clear Water Monkey clan knew that Luo Shiyuan, the head of the mermaid clan, was seriously injured. But it is not clear how serious the other party's injury is. It is even more unclear whether the other party's injuries have healed. Therefore, during this time he has not dared to act rashly. But waiting left and right, the patriarch of the merman clan has never been seen. The patriarch of the Clear Water Monkey clan, who had not dared to act rashly, began to stir in his heart. As long as they take down the merman, they will be able to occupy the area of the Demon Ape Mountain for thousands of miles. Such a huge territory. How many resources should there be, and how many treasures can be exchanged for the human race? As long as there is Magic Ape Mountain, their Clear Water Ape family can rise rapidly. By the time they who are stronger can completely abandon the Wu family and find a stronger human backer. For example, the Zhou family in Guang'an Prefecture. In addition, there is another reason why the patriarch of the Clear Water Monkey clan chose to attack the mermaid clan. That is, the strength of the merman is stronger than them. Luo Shiyuan, the head of the merman clan, was in the late period of Zifu, and his cultivation was only in the early stage of the third order, which was equivalent to the early period of Zifu of the human race. If not before the merman clan chief's injury recovers, the opponent will be removed. When the chief of the merman clan recovered from his injuries, the unlucky one would be their neighbor, the Clear Water Ape and Monkey clan. After all, the Water Demon Ape family is also their close relatives. They have all seen what happens. Front. An elite team of 20 Clear Water Apes flew over from the back of the Demonic Ape Mountains towards the position of the main spirit eye. The second-order late-stage Clear Water Monkey who took the lead discovered Luo Li and Xiaoqing in front of Linghu. It waved to the clansmen behind it and communicated with divine sense. Kill them, don't let them pass the news back. Monsters are very intelligent, especially the ape-like monsters. Generally speaking, the spiritual wisdom of a first-order monster is only equivalent to that of a 7 or 8-year-old child, while the spiritual wisdom of a second-order monster is almost the same as that of a 16 or 7-year-old human boy. The ape-like monster's intelligence is even more exaggerated, and the second-order clear water ape's intelligence is no less than that of an ordinary adult. Here the order of the leader, the clear water ape. A group of 20 clear water monkeys rushed towards Luo Li and Xiaoqing in a mighty manner. Your Highness, be careful. Well, be careful too. Just finished. 20 clear water apes have been killed. The two sides did not have any nonsense and they fought directly as soon as they met. Face this scene. Luo Li was used to it. Monster beasts are more direct than humans. They fear the strong but they are far more cruel to the weak than humans. In Wan Xinghai, what is pursued is the naked law of the jungle. Precisely because they follow this rule, Xinhai Hall can rely on the frenzied slaughter, among the monsters and aliens, the inviolable prestige under the tree. Kill? Luo Li took out 2 red shadow swords and charged towards the group of clear water apes. Xiaoqing is protecting her flank. The battle between mermen and monsters is very different from that of humans. Since both the monsters and the mermen have practiced the body training technique, they are more inclined to like melee combat. In other words, with the power of true essence and physical body, the strength of melee combat is stronger than that of remote control instruments. Of course, the Clear Water Monkey clan had no magic weapon at all. They were holding a different kind of iron rod that they got from somewhere. Howling. The group of Clear Water Monkeys killed Luo Li and Xiaoqing. Brush. 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 Luo Li's figure almost turned into countless afterimages in the Clear Water Monkeys. However, as a Clear Water ape of the same rank, he would not be fooled by Luo Li's movement technique at all. The only thing you need to pay attention to is the magic weapon in her hand. Under the infusion of Luo Li's true essence, the power that the Scarlet Shadow Sword erupted was completely different from that of a cultivator in the Qi refining period. But unfortunately, the rank of the Red Shadow Fei Jian is too low. Only a mere first-order inferior. Luo Li didn't dare to pour his true essence into the flying sword with all his strength. Because some people of the Foundation establishment period did this before, the pattern on the Red Shadow Sword was directly destroyed by the violent real essence. The flying sword pattern was destroyed, and the charm of the magic weapon dissipated, becoming no different from ordinary iron. Therefore, when Luo Li used the Red Shadow Sword, she would be careful for fear of destroying it. As such, it is difficult to exert her strength. But no matter how you say it, it is better than bare hands. With the cooperation of her and Xiaoqing, 20 Clear Water apes continued to be injured. But none of their injuries were serious. It's just that there are bloodstains drawn by the Red Shadow Sword, which is completely harmless. The Clear Water ape at the head opened its green eyes, looked at Xiaoqing behind Luo Li and ordered, "Kill her first." After a brief battle just now, it has found a problem. It is unrealistic to want to kill this merman in spirit armor in a short period of time. Because its iron rod knocks on the opponent's spirit armor, not only will it not hurt the opponent but it will hurt its arm. The only way is, kill Xiaoqing next to Luo Li first, and then take advantage of their numbers to surround Luo Li in the middle, and slowly consume her true essence with real battles. When the other party's true essence is exhausted, whether it is round or flat, it is they who have the final say. It can be seen from this. The intelligence of this group of Clear Water Monkeys is really no lower than that of ordinary people, and they know how to use tactics. Really. Clear Water Monkey's tactics changed. Xiaoqing's pressure instantly increased. Luo Li has the body armor of her life, but she doesn't. In an instant, all 20 Clear Water Monkeys attacked her waving iron rods, and Xiaoqing couldn't bear it at all. See this scene. Luo Li was angry and anxious. She even used her own body to block Xiaoqing's attack, but it didn't work at all. The stick technique of this group of Clear Water apes is quite exquisite. He easily avoided Luo Li's slender figure. Your Highness. Xiaoqing watched countless stick shadows attacking her, and closed her eyes in despair. See. Luo Li's heart was ruthless and she immediately used a forbidden technique. I saw that with the blessing of this access control technique, her movement speed was several times faster in an instant, and the attacks that were originally unstoppable were also blocked by her life spirit armor. Take spirit armor to resist damage. If it is looked at by a human race monk, it is estimated that it will be shocking. In the eyes of the human cultivators, the spirit armor is completely a life-saving magic weapon, and there is no one who takes the initiative to take the spirit armor and bump into others to attack. But at the moment, in order to save Xiaoqing, Luo Li had no other way. Under the blessing of prohibition, Luo Li's figure turned into countless afterimages, covering all the Clearwater apes. But unfortunately, the flying sword in her hand is too weak. It can only cut through the flesh and blood on the surface of the Clearwater ape. But with the resilience of Tier 2 monsters, the speed at which Luo Li hurt the opponent was not as fast as they did. Gradually, the prohibition period passed. Seeing countless stick figures fall on Xiaoqing again, Luo Li was desperate. This moment, she even saw a faint smile on the corner of Xiaoqing's mouth. "Are you dancing?" At the time of despair, a familiar voice entered Luo Li's ears. The voice did not fall. A little star burst from the body of a Clearwater ape. Immediately afterwards, more and more stars appeared, and finally they all joined together. Just for a moment, 20 Clearwater apes were completely torn to shreds by the starlight, leaving no residue. He looked at the familiar figure in front of him. Luo Li was speechless. Half an hour. She raised her head slightly and said, "Yes, does it look good?" Chapter 130. Well? On the side, Xiaoqing's groans pulled Luo Li back to her senses. Xiaoqing, are you all right? Luo Li immediately ignored Qin Daoxian, dropped the red shadow sword in his hand and flew towards Xiaoqing. Look carefully. Luo Li breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it's just that the internal organs were smashed by a blunt weapon. The viscera was broken by a blunt object. This kind of injury is definitely a life-threatening serious injury on an ordinary person. But if it is placed on the foundation-building merman, it will at most be considered a minor injury. It will recover in a day or two. Xiaoqing glanced at Luo Li, then glanced at Qin Daoxian next to her. Her eyes lit up slightly and said, "Don't worry about me for now. The Bisui monkey clan is calling out in front of the main vein. You go back to help." She told Luo Li to come to the rescue, but in fact she looked at Qin Daoxian. What she meant? How could Qin Daoxian not understand? It was nothing more than seeing that he easily killed 20 Clearwater monkeys in the Foundation establishment stage, thinking that his strength was comparable to that of the Zifu cultivator. I want him to rescue the merman. Only. Qin Daoxian didn't know the true strength of this Clearwater monkey clan. How could he be willing to take risks? Little Qing girl, right? Lord. Seeing Qin Daoxian, Xiaoqing struggled to stand up and salute him. Qin Daoxian nodded slightly and said, "I don't know how strong the Clearwater monkey clan you are talking about is." Heard. Xiaoqing hurriedly explained, "The Clearwater monkey clan is a race of ape-like monsters near my demon monkey mountain. Their patriarchs are only in the early third order, which is equivalent to the early cultivators of the human race Sifu." Hear this? Qin Daoxian shook his head. In the past he would still use his cultivation base to judge the strength of a cultivator, but after discovering that there were still cultivators like him and Zhou Mubai in the world who did not use common sense, Qin Daoxian didn't dare to simply judge a monk's true strength by his cultivation base. It seems that the other party only has the initial cultivation base of Zifu, but how big is the difference in strength between different Zifu early cultivation bases? Just look at Zhou Mubai and Luo Shiyuan, the head of the Merman clan. At the beginning, Zhou Mubai probably didn't do his best, so he beat Luo Shiyuan seriously and escaped. If he did his best, Luo Shiyuan would definitely die in Guang'an Mansion that day. The most common Zifu cultivator, Qin Daoxian, is indeed confident that he can fight against each other 1 or 2 times. But if the patriarch of the Clearwater monkey clan is Zhou Mubai, no, even if it is only half of Zhou Mubai's strength. Qin Daoxian went to support, and it was no different from courting death. Seeing that Qin Daoxian was silent, Xiaoqing immediately guessed his concerns. He opened his mouth and said, "Please rest assured, Lord, if the patriarch of the Clearwater monkey clan is really strong, why wouldn't he dare to attack us directly, but choose to send his clan to test it?" Hear this? Qin Daoxian felt that it made some sense. But he shook his head again and said, "Perhaps it's just cautious by nature?" Hear this? Xiaoqing suddenly did not know how to persuade. "In my heart, is there anyone who is more cautious than you?" Aside. Although Luo Li's eyes were full of anticipation, he did not want Qin Daoxian to take risks. For a time I was very conflicted. Half an hour. She looked at Qin Daoxian and said, "You better go. There is no need to die with us." "Aren't you going?" Qin Daoxian looked at her in surprise. "Me? Where am I going?" Luo Li's eyes were full of desolation. Hear this? Qin Daoxian's heart was touched fiercely. Thinking that she was willing to risk herself just to protect the law for himself, he hesitated at this moment. I couldn't help but secretly despised myself. Immediately he looked at Luo Li with a smile and said, "Since you don't want to leave, then I'll accompany you home." This moment, starlight sprinkled on Qin Daoxuan's profile. Luo Li looked at the tall, handsome man in front of him and nodded vigorously. "Okay, let's go home together." Along the way, Qin Daoxian carefully calculated the method of retreating from the enemy. He finally had an idea. Under the main vein of Demon Ape Mountain, the patriarch of the Clearwater Monkey clan leads tens of thousands of people, and is staring at the mermaid people on the main vein. Confrontation. The patriarch of the Clearwater Monkey clan also spit out human words, shouting, "I don't know that the Mare people have migrated here. It's really rude. Today is a special day to visit the Mare people patriarch, and I also invite a few people to pass the word." A huge ape several feet tall, carrying an iron rod as thick as a tree stump, walked in front of the two armies, jumping and jumping. "Humph! Do you need such a big battle to meet the patriarch of my clan? Why don't you come here alone?" Hear this. The patriarch of the Clearwater Monkey clan turned his eyes, and there was a hint of fear in his eyes. But he said, "I brought a lot of clansmen on this trip. It is inconvenient to go to your clan. Please invite your clan chief out." After a pause it said again, "Could it be that your patriarch was seriously injured by Zhoumu and died as rumored? If this is the case, I still have a spiritual elixir from the human race, which may save your patriarch's life, but it is unknown. Stop talking nonsense. Fight if you want." The headed merman old man blew his beard and stared. Hear this. On the contrary, the patriarch of the Clearwater Monkey clan did not dare to act rashly. It glanced at a clansman beside him, lowered his head and said, "What's going on?" "I sent out to test the true and false clansmen of the Mare people? I don't know. After they detoured to the back mountain of Demon Ape Mountain, until now no news has come back. Maybe they encountered some trouble." The clansmen on the side tremblingly transmitted their voices. "What a bunch of trash." The patriarch of the Clearwater Ape scolded. At this time, a white figure flew out from the mercenary camp. He threw the head of a Clearwater Ape to the front of the two armies and said, "Are you looking for this? Human race?" Seeing Qin Daoxian, the aura of the patriarch of the Clearwater Monkey suddenly weakened. In the Wangxinghai underwater world, aliens have a natural fear of humans. This kind of fear comes from their fear of Jinhai Palace. The patriarch of the Clearwater Ape took a closer look. That ape head seems to be indeed the clan he sent out. "This fellow Taoist, what do you mean by this?" Although his heart was full of anger, the patriarch of the Clearwater Monkey clan was cautious. Seeing its cautious appearance, Qin Daoxian was relieved. "The meaning of this seat, get out of the magic monkey mountain immediately." The words fall. A star pierced through the sea space and instantly killed the patriarch of the Clearwater Ape. "See this sword?" Suddenly a threat of death enveloped it. Boom. Crucial moment. It raised the foreign iron rod in its hand and blocked the fatal blow. But its arms were trembling slightly. Obviously, the power of this sword was far beyond what an ordinary Foundation establishment cultivator could use. Sword repair. Definitely a swordsman. This moment, it seems to have mistakenly thought that the person in front of him was the Guang'an sword immortal Zhoumu. But obviously the other side is not. Because it knew Zhoumu. It's not Zhoumu and he's so young he's still a swordsman. There is no such person in Guang'an Prefecture at all, the only possibility is. "You are the town, the town?" At this moment, the patriarch of the Clearwater Ape was so frightened that he couldn't even speak. Immediately after, it immediately threw away the iron rod in its hand, knelt to the ground with a thud and shouted loudly, "My subordinate rammed the emissary of the Jinhai Palace, damn it." Saying that, kowtow like pounding garlic. It's hard to imagine that a Clearwater Ape patriarch who was arrogant and domineering just now and wanted to exterminate the mermaid race is now kneeling on the ground like a clown, constantly kowtowing. This moment, Qin Daoxian was even more curious about Jinhai Palace in his heart. What kind of existence can suppress the alien race to such a level of fear? Not only the Clearwater Monkey family. He carefully recalled the uncontrollable fear in the eyes of the other party when he saw the patriarch of the Merman clan for the first time and mentioned Qinyuan Jianzong. Qinyuan Sword Sect. Although Qin Daoxian had heard of this name before stepping into the path of cultivation, but there has never been a time when there has been such a shock. A cultivator from the Purple House knelt in front of a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building and kept kowtowing, just by virtue of the 3 words of Jinhai Hall under the command of Jianzong of Qianyuan. Chapter 131. Demon Mountain. The cave mansion of the head of the Merman clan. All right. Qin Daoxian pulled his right hand away from Luo Ziyuan's chest. Your luck is good, it coincides with my breakthrough in cultivation and great progress in swordsmanship. Otherwise, with your injury you won't be able to live for 3 years at most. Luo Shiyuan felt that the sword chi of the wound on his chest was dissolved by Qin Daoxian's sword will, and he felt that his whole body was relieved, as if he had lifted the burden of hundreds of millions of pounds. This moment, although his face was still pale, the unparalleled strength returned to his majestic body. Thank you, Lord, for saving your life. Luo Shiyuan stood up, bowed his head in front of Qin Daoxian and said respectfully. Qin Daoxian waved his hand. Get up. Thank you, Lord, seems to think of something. Immediately, Qin Daoxian glanced at everyone strangely and said, Is the Bisui monkey clan so afraid of Jinhai Palace? This sentence. Immediately the entire cave dwelling was quiet and needles could be heard. Half an hour. Luo Shiyuan cupped his hands and said, Lord, you may not live in the underwater world of Wangxinghai, and you don't know much about the situation here, so it shouldn't be said that the Clear Water Monkey clan is afraid of Jinhai Palace. Instead, in the Wangxinghai underwater world, there is no race that is not afraid of Zenhadian. Not a single one? Qin Daoxian was quite surprised. There have been, Luo Shiyuan paused, but all of them have been exterminated. Speaking of this, his voice suddenly fell. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian fell silent. He originally just wanted to use the prestige of Jinhai Hall to make the Bisui monkey clan avoid the mouse and retreat, but he did not expect the effect to be far better than he expected. The patriarch of the Clear Water Ape almost rolled and climbed to escape the demonic ape mountain. Visible. The 3 words Zenhadian have left a shadow on it. Out of the cave, Qin Daoxian looked at the starry sky in the underwater world. This time, because his cultivation had broken through to the foundation establishment stage, he seemed to feel that the sea of stars above his head had become a little different. But where exactly is different? Qin Daoxian couldn't speak again. Let's go. He glanced at Luo Li next to him. Luo Li nodded, grabbed Qin Daoxian's hand and headed towards the sea. Actually, with Qin Daoxian breaking through the foundation building stage, he can already learn the technique of water escape, and there is no need for Luo Li to hold his hand anymore. But at the moment, the 2 of them seemed to have a heart-to-heart and did not mention this stubble. Out of the sea. Returning to the human race world again, Qin Daoxian felt a sigh of relief. He glanced at Luo Li beside him and asked, Why do I think that you acted so calm when dealing with the invasion of the Clear Water Monkey clan? Am I wrong? I heard this. Luo Li was stunned for a moment, then shook his head with a hint of bitterness on his pretty face and said, This is the life in the underwater world of Wangxinghai. I've been used to it for so many years. One has already gotten used to it. It revealed too much bitterness that Qin Daoxian did not understand. This moment, he also didn't know how to comfort the girl in front of him. Maybe for her all comfort was pale. I'm leaving. He waved at Luo Li, then turned his head and flew into the air. Luo Li was the only one left, staring at his retreating back in a daze. Identify a direction. Qin Daoxian flew in the direction of Jianghu Island. Compared to the refining period, the escape speed of the foundation building cultivator was more than 10 times faster. As a sword cultivator, Qin Daoxian's escape should be faster than the ordinary foundation building cultivator. But sadly, his current flight speed is really not comparable to that of ordinary foundation establishment cultivators. Because he had just broken through the foundation building stage, he had not had time to practice various sword-flying techniques and the technique of escaping the light and turning into a rainbow. In addition, his 2 flying swords were also scrapped at the moment. Even if he learns to fly with the sword, there is no sword for him at all. After all, the patriarch of the Clear Water Monkey is equivalent to the early cultivation of the Zifu of the human race, and Qin Daoxian and his counterpart have a whole big realm, able to fight with each other. It is already a factor that his foundation is extremely solid, and the realm of Kendo far exceeds that of sword cultivators of the same level. If you replace it with an ordinary sword cultivator, you can at most be invincible at the same level, and it is absolutely impossible to cross a big realm and fight against others. Despite this, Qin Daoxian and the Bisui monkey patriarch fought recklessly, and it was not without cost. The price he paid was that the flying snow sword and Qingying sword were almost completely shattered. Think of this. He took out 2 flying swords from the storage bag. In particular, this flying snow sword can be said to have accompanied Qin Daoxian throughout his entire cultivation career. Even if it's not bad. With the service life of the First Order magic weapon, the Feishue sword will not last for a few years, and the aura will gradually dissipate. Looking at the flying snow sword full of cracks in his hand, a trace of sadness flashed in Qin Daoxuan's heart. For Jianxiu. Damage to the beloved Fei Jin is always one of the saddest things for Jianxiu. Qin Daoxian is no exception. As if feeling the master's intentions, the Feishue sword let out a slight whistle, but the aura of the sword body flickered, as if the aura would dissipate at any time. Old man, next you can rest, said silently. Qin Daoxian put the Feishue sword back into the storage bag again, and accelerated towards Jianghu Island. Twin Lakes Island Port. Qin Daoxian made the market town established by Qin Ji expand again. With the continuous flow of goods from the port, this market town seems to be blowing air, expanding in circles. Fortunately, Qin Daoxian greeted Qin Ji and Qin Beiwang. Let them plan the various constructions of the market town in advance. Therefore, Qin Daoxian looked at this moment. The whole market town was messy but not chaotic. Compared with Chongping County, which has the largest number of Qin family members, it exudes more vitality. Qin Daoxian knew that this was an economic leap brought about by trade. The material base determines the superstructure. This principle is also common in the cultivation world. Only when the economy develops well will the Qin family grow stronger. Although the world is dominated by monks, the most numerous are ordinary people. For example, the Zhou family has a population of tens of millions, almost equivalent to a country with a medium population in a previous life. So many people. The resources consumed and produced every day are massive. Although these resource cultivators cannot use or look down on them for ordinary people, they are necessities for their survival. In the Qin family, this part of the work has always been in charge of Chongping County Magistrate Qin Ji. In the future, Qin Daoxian will transfer this part of the work to the Ministry of People's Livelihood established by Qin Jiasen for unified management. I watched the busy ordinary people for a while. Qin Daoxuan's mood improved slightly. Using the wind-fighting technique, he flew towards the Qin family's spiritual meridian. It has not yet flown to the Qin family's Lingmai. Qin Daoxuan's consciousness swept away. Unexpectedly, I found that Uncle 13 was already teaching in ethnology. In the class of Chongping No. 1 Xiaoxin Primary School. Qin Xinhe stood in front of the blackboard. Explained to everyone the various barriers and understandings of Guiyuan Gong. It's just that this group of people of the blessed generation is just 5 years old, and many people can't recognize the hyphenation. Learning Guiyuan Gong gave Qin Xinhe quite a headache. Only now did he know how good Qin Daoxuan's talent was back then. No matter what, you can learn it as soon as you learn it, and you will be able to understand it at one point, plus study hard and practice hard. A good embryo born to practice. Thinking of Qin Daoxian, Qin Xinhe was a little distracted for a while. This kid. The foundation should be successful. Although he was sure that Qin Daoxian would succeed in establishing the foundation, he did not come back for more than a month. It is impossible to say that Qin Xinhe is not worried at all. At this moment, Uncle 13. A familiar voice came from Qin Ziyan's ear. Hear this familiar voice. Qin Xinhe turned his head and looked out the window. A familiar figure appeared in front of him, smiling brilliantly. Chapter 132. Twin Lakes Island. Chongping No. 1 Xiaoxin Primary School. In the first grade classroom. Standing on the podium, Qin Daoxian looked at the people of the Fu family in front of him, and said with a smile, "You have all learned some basic knowledge about crafting from teacher Daochu, right?" "Learn," inside the classroom. The Qin family students said loudly. "In your opinion, what is the purpose of the refining tool?" Hear this question. The students in the class whispered, not knowing how to respond. Half an hour. A little boy about 1.2 meters tall raised his hand. "Fulai, talk about it." Qin Daoxian pointed at the little boy who raised his hand. "Teacher, I think the purpose of the refining tool is to enhance the strength of the monk and help the monk to survive the catastrophe on the way of cultivation." "Very well, you sit down." Qin Daoxian looked around. "Does anyone else have a different idea?" At this time, a little girl stood up and said crisply, "Teacher, I think the purpose of refining is to make money." Ha 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 ha. In the classroom, Everyone burst into laughter. Stop laughing, what's so funny? Seeing everyone laughing at her, the little girl burst into tears in a hurry. Okay, everyone stop laughing. Qin Daoxian made a stop gesture and everyone's laughter gradually stopped. After all, this person in front of him, in addition to being their teacher, is also the young patriarch of the Qin family. Fuyun, your answer is not bad, sit down. The little girl sat down angrily. Qin Daoxian glanced at everyone, then smiled and said, actually what Fu Lai and Fuyuan said just now are true. We refiners are refining weapons to earn spiritual stones and buy cultivation resources. Ordinary monks buy magical instruments to enhance their own strength and resist the risks on the way of cultivation. There is no contradiction between the two. Qin Daoxian paused, but there is a problem, that is, in Wangxinghai ordinary scattered cultivators often carry spirit stones, but they cannot buy satisfactory instruments. Why is this? Teacher, I know this because there are too few refiners. I know because the magic weapon is too expensive, ordinary scattered repairers can't afford it. This time, everyone started talking about various reasons. But to sum up, it's just that there are few artifact refiners and the artifact is expensive. Then do you know why there are so few refiners? It's because the cost of training a craftsman is too high, and a small family can't afford it. Qin Fulai replied. Right? Qin Daoxian nodded. The small family can't train an artifact refiner. The reason is that the profit earned by artifact refining is too low, and the loose cultivator can't buy magic tools, because the price of magic tools is too expensive. One party dislikes the low profit, but the other party can't afford it. In fact, both sides are not wrong. What is wrong? The fault is that our efficiency in refining magic tools is too low, and our productivity in producing magic tools is too low. Qin Daoxian looked at everyone. Therefore, the lesson I'm going to teach you today is to explain how to improve the efficiency of refining magic tools. Done. Qin Daoxian wrote a few big characters on the blackboard. The idea of industrial refiners. The students in the audience followed word by word. Industrial area. Hongyin Feijin Factory. As summer approaches, the weather is getting hotter and hotter. Even with Qin Liangji's congenital cultivation base, he felt that he couldn't handle the high temperature in the factory. Director Qin. Qin Liangyu was wiping his sweat, and a familiar voice made him raise his head. Young Patriarch. When Qin Liangyu saw Qin Daoxian, his face was happy at first, and then he bowed to Qin Daoxian. Finished the ceremony. Qin Liangyu stood up straight and said with a smile, is the young patriarch here to inspect the situation in the factory? Right, speak up. Qin Daoxian has not come to Hongyin Feijin Factory for a long time. More than 2 years. He is basically busy with his foundation building and the education of the Qin family. The foundation is now established. The education problem of the Qin family has also been temporarily resolved. He finally found time to come to the factory to inspect the situation. Young patriarch, please come inside. Qin Liangyu immediately made a pleased gesture. Qin Daoxian followed Qin Liangyu into the factory. The current Hongyin Feijin factory has increased the number of melting furnaces to 9 compared to the one when it was first built. Of course, this does not mean that the production of Hongyin Feijin has increased 9-fold. The reason is that Qin Daoxian, Qin Daochu, and Qin Daolian couldn't do the refining at the Hongyin Feijin factory all day. Qin Daochuan needn't say more. He has been following Qin Xinhe to learn to manage the Qin family's magic tool shop. Now he can manage the magic weapon shop in Sangxiafang City in Guang'an Prefecture by himself. Qin Xinhe came back to teach. It just proves that Qin Daochuan has the ability to be independent. What makes Qin Daoxian even more happy is that Qin Daochuan did not slow down his practice because of the management of the magic weapon shop. Although Qin Daochuan's spiritual roots are not as good as Qin Daochu and Qin Daolian, he is also a cultivator of Zhongling roots. Therefore, over the years, Qin Daochuan's cultivation has also reached the 6th level of qi refining, and he is only one step away from breaking through the late qi refining stage. Take a closer look. The Qin family has changed a lot in recent years. Not only did Qin Daoxian successfully build a foundation, he became a foundation-building cultivator. Other Taoist monks also grew up. Qin Daochu and Qin Daolian, as monks with the same spiritual roots as Qin Daoxian, and their hard work and sufficient resources, the progress of their practice is no slower than Qin Daoxian. Even because they had sufficient cultivation resources from the beginning, they had to practice faster than Qin Daoxian. Both of them are now at the 9th level of qi refining, in a state of polishing one's own infuriating energy. As long as the infuriating qi is polished and integrated, one can try to break through the qi refining period. In addition to these three, the other 6 Taoist monks only had lower spiritual roots, and only 3 had just reached the 4th level of Qi refining. The rest are all at the 3rd level of Qi refining. But anyway, compared with the Qin family 5 years ago, there were only 2 cultivators, Qin Xianhe and Qin Daoxian. Already too strong. Especially with the first batch of monks of the Fu character generation entering the clan. According to Qin Daoxuan's decision, after a year of basic education, the people of the Fuzi generation, it will be allowed to take Tongmai pill to help it open up the meridians of the whole body, saving a lot of time for cultivation. Only. There were 108 people in the first batch of immortal seedlings of the blessed character generation, all of whom needed more than 50,000 spirit stones to take Tongmai Dan. This is not to mention that more and more monks of the blessing generation are coming every year. Once these monks step into the path of practice, the consumption of spiritual energy and various cultivation resources will be massive. Just relying on the current Feijin factory of the Qin family, it is simply unrealistic to want to support so many monks of the blessing generation. Every time I think about it, Qin Daoxian felt a little headache. Home business hours. He is busy in the factory by himself, and he can make all the monks of the Taoist generation live very nourishing. But as the family grew, not to mention that Qin Daoxian was busy in the Feijin factory alone, even if he drove all the 8-year-old monks of the Taoist generation to the factory, the money earned was far from being consumed by the new generation of monks in the family. Chapter 133. In fact, this account is very good. There are a total of 108 immortal seedlings in the Chen family who have just reached school age. By next year, these immortal seedlings will become real monks and enter the fairyland. At that time, they need to consume spiritual energy and various cultivation resources. Let's not talk about spirituality, only practice resources. The Chen family will have a total of 118 monks from the Taoist generation and the Fuzi generation next year. Among them, there is 1 cultivator in the foundation building stage and 117 cultivators in the Qi refining stage. So many people. Even if each Qi refining cultivator consumes 1,000 spiritual stones each year on average, in 1 year, nearly 120,000 spirit stones would be enough. To know. This is only the first batch of monks of the blessing generation. The next generation of monks in the Qin family will be more and more. That is to say, the cultivation resources consumed by the Qin family every year will increase by the number of hundreds of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones. This is only the consumption of cultivation resources. In addition to various cultivation resources, the most basic need for monks to practice is naturally aura, that is, the need for spiritual veins. The Qin family currently only has 1 first-order spiritual vein. To be frank, the Lingmai problem is the big problem that the Qin family needs to solve urgently. Because Qin Daoxian is now a foundation-building cultivator. If this first-order spiritual vein is only used by him, it is barely enough. If more than 100 Qi refining cultivators of the Qin family are allowed to use it together with his foundation-building cultivator, that's far from enough. Not to mention a few years later, the monks of the Taoist generation will start to build foundations, and there are more and more monks of the blessing generation. First-order spiritual veins are definitely not acceptable. Then there are 2 paths left. First, increase the number of first-order spiritual veins. Second, upgrade the first-order spiritual veins to the second-order spiritual veins. The first plan consumes less spirit stones. After all, a first-order spirit vein is only 100,000 spirit stones. For the current Qin family, it's just a drizzle. However, it is no problem for the first-order spiritual veins to be practiced by monks in the Qi refining period. But it is not enough to build a foundation for the monks in the Qi refining period. The Qin family doesn't have to borrow spiritual veins from other families every time a cultivator builds a foundation. No one else can lend it to you again and again. After all, after a second-order spiritual vein builds a foundation for a cultivator, it is basically impossible for the next Qi refining cultivator to build a foundation within 10 years. This is also a huge loss for a family with second-order spiritual veins, unless it is a third-order spiritual vein. On the contrary, you can build a foundation at will for the monks in the Qi refining stage. But I want to cultivate first-order spiritual veins into third-order spiritual veins. Need to spend 11 million spirit stones. This spiritual stone is a huge amount, not to mention the Qin family, even for big families like the Yang family and the Wu family, for a short period of time. Of course, the Qin family couldn't come up with such a huge sum of spirit stones. Therefore, It can only spend 1 million spirit stones to temporarily cultivate the family's spirit veins to the second rank. Qin Daoxian followed behind Qin Liangyu. Walk inside the factory. Compared to 2 years ago, the internal changes of the Hongyin Feijin factory are not big. The only change is that there are more apprentices in the factory. See this scene. Qin Daoxian nodded and said, "It seems that you have done a good job of the apprenticeship system in the past 2 years. It's all based on the guidance of the young patriarch, and Liangyu does not dare to take credit." Qin Liangyu cupped his hands with a smile on his face and said humbly. Next moment, Qin Daoxian saw that in a production room, a furnace operator skillfully removed a spirit stone that was exhausted from aura from the melting furnace. He pointed to the production room and asked, "Director Qin, how many spirit stones do our Feijin factory consume each year?" Qin Liangyu knew. The consumption of spirit stones in Qin Daoxian's mouth refers to the power consumption of the formation provided by each Rongling furnace for refining spirit ore. That is, the spirit stone that the furnace operator just took out from the bottom of the melting furnace. Hear this question. Qin Liangyi's face was full of bitterness and he complained, "Young patriarch, this melting furnace is good. The only flaw is that it consumes a lot of spirit stones every year. According to the factory statistics, if each Rongling furnace worked at full strength, it would consume 1 spiritual stone in about 3 days." So much? Qin Daoxian said in surprise. When he was working in the factory before, Qin Liangyu was always in charge of logistical issues, including the spirit stones consumed by the melting furnace. After all, there was only 1 spirit melting furnace at the time. Even if 1 spirit stone was consumed in 3 days, it would only consume 100 spirit stones in a year. With Qin Daoxian's ability to make money at that time, he really didn't pay much attention to this consumption. But now the 9 fused spirit furnaces consume a lot. After a year, the consumption of the luminous stone reached 1,000. If in the future, various magical instrument factories will be built in the industrial area, and a large number of monks of the Fu character will enter the factory, the number of Qin family Rongling furnaces will explode. Suppose there are 1,000 melting furnaces. That year, the consumption of light spirit stones has reached more than 100,000 spirit stones. It is equivalent to swallowing a spiritual vein in a year. Not to mention the further advancement of the industrialization process of the Qin family. Qin Daoxian, who studied engineering in his previous life, knows that the foundation of industrialization is the driving force. Whether it is the age of steam or the age of electricity, power changes will always sound the horn of the Industrial Revolution. In this life, the driving force Qin Daoxian chose for the refining industry was Reiki. Because the energy of Reiki is a kind of clean and almost infinite energy. Only a few years ago, due to limited conditions, Qin Daoxian was eager to get the Rongling furnace out, so he didn't care about its power. Directly and forcibly replaced the power source of the Rongling furnace with spirit stones. Actually, whether it is cultivation or using the spirit stone as the power source of the melting furnace, it is an extremely wasteful behavior. Although the name of Lingshi is Lingshi, it is not essentially because of the little spiritual energy it stores. To be frank, compared with the aura generated by the spiritual veins, the aura stored in the spirit stone is simply the difference between a firefly and a bright moon. The place where Lingshi is truly precious. It lies in the power of creation that is wrapped in aura inside it. It is precisely because of this power of creation that Lingshi can cultivate and promote spiritual veins, and use the spirit stone as a power source. Qin Daoxian threw away the most precious power of creation in the spirit stone. That is to say, the Rongling furnace has greatly improved the production efficiency and increased the profit dozens of times. Otherwise, he simply can't stand Qin Daoxian's prodigal behavior. Inside the factory, Qin Liangyu stopped when he saw Qin Daoxian frowning. I was a little apprehensive. He naturally didn't know that Qin Daoxian thought so far. In fact, he didn't even know what industrialization was. All he knew was to keep track of the factory's finances, and to deal with all sorts of logistical issues at the factory. "Less, young patriarch, half an hour." Qin Liangyu called out cautiously. "Oh, it's all right, let's continue." Qin Daoxian came back to his senses and said with a smile. But in the heart, he had secretly memorized the power problem and wondered how to solve it. Chapter 134. After inspecting the Feijin factory, Qin Daoxian had a rough idea of the family's current Feijin production. In general, since the 3 of Qin Daoxian left the factory, a few new Taoist monks joined the factory. The increase in factory output was not large. In the past, the Hongyin Feijian factory could produce 900 Fijians per month, but now it can only produce more than 1,000 Fijians per month, an increase of only 10%. Profit from this output. Of course, it cannot meet the resource consumption caused by the growing number of cultivators in the Chen family. Therefore, the expansion of the factory is imminent. But, before that, Qin Daoxian needs to solve the power problem of the factory. The first thing that came to his mind was the electricity network in his previous life. On Earth, all countries use wires to transport electricity. Although aura is completely different from electricity as a special energy, it must also have a carrier that can carry and transport it. As long as this carrier is found, the problem of aura transportation can be solved. And the spirit stone that is depleted of spirit energy is a special material that can store spirit energy. It should be regarded as one of such special carriers. Think of this. Qin Daoxian picked up a spirit stone whose spiritual energy was exhausted. Who knows? As Qin Daoxian exerted a little force, the spirit stone that was depleted of spiritual energy was like a sandy stone, and it turned into a cloud of powder and fell on the ground. Powder? Qin Daoxian grabbed the pile of gray-white powder with his fingers from the ground. Zoom in. These white powders are small sand crystal-like particles, a bit like the sand on the earth. Each of these small particles is the size of sand. Blow it gently and it floats all over the place. Qin Daoxian frowned and touched his chin. Next second, he used fire control. I saw a mass of white flames burst out from his palm. Since the cultivation base has been upgraded to the foundation establishment stage, this fire control technique, which has little lethality in the qi refining period, can now also pose a fatal threat to the qi refining period monks. This is the horror of cultivators' high cultivation. Obviously it is the same spell used by high-level monks, but it can cause a fatal threat to low-level monks. While controlling the flame, he roasted the off-white powder under the flames. So, the off-white powder turned into a white liquid. Qin Daoxian knew. This is the result of the off-white powder being melted by high temperature. Then, he manipulated Zhen Yuan and pulled the gray-white liquid into a long line the thickness of a little finger. Say it's a long line. Actually, the line is less than 20 centimeters. No way the powder that a fist-sized spirit stone turns into can only create such a long line at most. But for Qin Daoxian's experiment, enough. Wait until the long line cools and solidifies. I saw that he used his true essence to control the spiritual energy in Lingtan, and instilled it towards the end of the long line. Under the squeeze of Qin Daoxian Jinyuan, the aura easily moved from one end of the long line to the other. Under Qin Daoxian's perception, there is almost no consumption. Sure enough, Qin Daoxian was slightly overjoyed. He squeezed the long gray-white wire in his hand. It was soft in texture, not as hard as the metal wire in the previous life, but somewhat like rubber wrapped around the wire. I didn't expect that the powder formed after the spirit stone was exhausted and solidified at high temperature would turn into a substance like rubber. Qin Daoxian's eyes were filled with surprise. In this way, the problem of spiritual energy transportation is half solved. The reason is because Qin Daoxian knows that, in order to flow aura in addition to a carrier that can transport it, it also needs a power that can push it. On Earth, this dynamic is called voltage. And here, Qin Daoxian called it Lingya for the time being. The spiritual pressure here is not the same concept as the spiritual pressure of the Rongling furnace feedback system. It refers to the pressure that activates the aura in the aura network. Pity. Qin Daoxian experimented for a long time, but to no avail. However, this experiment is probably the one that he has made the fastest progress. Which is like the past. Whether it is a Rongling furnace or a Dantian pressure reducer. It took him years. And also with the help of an epiphany state. If there is no epiphany about this plug-in, whether it can produce results in this life is a matter of two things. But this time, it only takes less than a stick of incense. He has finished the carrier spirit line for building the aura network. I have to say, sometimes doing research, luck is far more important than strength. Qin Daoxian is a typical example this time. Wangxinghai underwater world. After untold hardships, the Sun brothers finally found the location of the black jade card in their hands in the corner of the underwater world of Guang'an Prefecture. Brother, are you here yet? Arrive. Sun Fu, the white-faced cultivator, looked at the surrounding environment and said solemnly, "This immortal mansion is as rumored, it is located in an independent secret space. You protect me, don't disturb me. Don't worry, big brother. The rough man also knows that this is the most critical moment of this trip. If this happens, Maybe the two of them can soar into the sky like the real Shinjua 400 years ago. If it fails. No, it won't fail. The rough man's face became firm. In order to find this place and set foot here, their brothers have paid too much over the years. Since he got this black jade card by luck once. The two brothers had been plotting for nearly 2 decades. Finally found it here. Thoughts flipping. There seems to be a new change in the white-faced monk. I saw the white-faced cultivator named Sun Fu exclaimed, overjoyed, "Quick! The immortal mansion is open." Only then did the rough middle-aged cultivator see that in front of his eldest brother, a space crack suddenly opened. Accompanied by the surging of this crack, there is a large amount of extremely pure aura. Such pure spirit. Not to mention in Guang'an Prefecture, even if they were in Jingguan Xianxing on the battlefield of Izumo, they never felt it. To know. In the 7 towns and Guanxin cities built by Qinyuan Jianzong on the battlefield of Izumo, all of them are equipped with spiritual veins above the 5th order. That is to say, in the secret realm of the immortal mansion, there is a spiritual vein that is more advanced than the 5th order spiritual vein. Posted. We posted. In the face of such terrifying wealth, even the mansion of a white-faced cultivator could not calm down at this moment. Present. The two did not dare to delay and flew directly into the space crack. Next second. The space crack closed suddenly as if nothing had happened. After the Sun brothers entered the immortal mansion, I wandered around in the secret territory of Shinfu for several hours. This turned out to be a little different from what I imagined. Brother, where is the spiritual vein? The white-faced monks also felt that something was wrong. The large amount of pure spiritual energy they sensed just now was not produced by the spiritual veins. It is the rootless duckweed stored in the secret territory of this immortal mansion. Discover this fact. The two were suddenly disappointed. Forget it anyway, we are here this time, not for the spiritual veins, let's find the immortal inheritance first. The white-faced monk said solemnly. The area of this immortal mansion cheat book is huge. The two spent several days wandering inside before they found a palace suspected to be inhabited by immortals. This palace is extremely majestic, hundreds of meters high. The two Sun brothers stood in front of the palace like an ant. The two of them tiptoed open the gate of the palace. Step into it slowly. Enter the palace. The two found a corpse sitting in the palace. What a corpse it is. Silver hair, golden eyes, jade bones. The body is immortal for hundreds of millions of years. Although the Sun brothers didn't know how old the corpse was the moment they saw it. The two fell to the ground unconsciously. That is the respect from the heart of the seeker after seeing the Taoist. This kneeling, involuntarily but also from the heart. However, the two did not find out at all. Not far from the corpse there was a silver coffin. Now, the lid of the coffin moved slightly. But the two were completely attracted by the immortal's corpse in front of them, and didn't notice the changes in the coffin. A long time. The two recovered from the shock. Big brother, the corpse of the immortal is here, it really is the immortal mansion, it really is the immortal mansion. Look for the inheritance. The white-faced cultivator couldn't care less about being indifferent, and said anxiously. At this moment, a cold and terrifying voice that seemed to freeze the soul of a person sounded behind the two of them. Jia, what are you looking for? Who? The white-faced cultivator Sun Fu turned his head sharply, but the scene in front of him almost scared him to pieces. I see. A 10,000-year-old corpse king with black suffocation and blood entanglement is staring at the two with green eyes. You are the real god. For the famous Shinju real person. Even after 400 years had passed, Sun Fu still recognized him from his appearance at a glance. However, the other party has now turned into a zombie. Jia, you haven't told me, what are you looking for? Chapter 135. Jianghu Island. Hongyin Feijin Factory. Qin Daoxian stood in front of a melting furnace. At this time, this Rongling furnace has been working for more than 10 hours. Qin Daoxian's consciousness swept away. It was known that the refining of several second-order water attribute spiritual minerals in the Rongling furnace was completed, and it was about to be taken out of the furnace. Next. Shape, melt formation. Qin Daoxian has long been familiar with the road. Thanks to the transformation of true essence and divine consciousness, it is now extremely easy for Qin Daoxian to refine second-order high-grade instruments. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't have a third-order magic weapon inheritance in his hand. With his true essence far exceeding that of the late foundation-building cultivator, and his divine sense comparable to that of the Zifu cultivator, he can try to refine a Tier 3 flying sword. Pfft. A mouthful of blood essence was sprayed on the water-type flying sword embryo engraved with the 18th formation pattern. Next second, essence and blood and patterns slowly merged into the Dao sword embryo. Feijin refining successfully. Immediately revolved around Qin Daoxian like a bird returning to its nest. Looked at the second-order high-grade flying sword that was very cheerful and unusual in front of him. Qin Daoxian took out the broken Feishue sword from the storage bag and said, "From now on, I'll call you Feishue." Finished. He treasured Feishue's sword and put it in his storage bag. The following few days, Qin Daoxian did the same and refined the second-tier high-grade wind attribute flying sword. This mouth attribute flying sword was also named Qingying sword by him. After refining 2 natal flying swords, Qin Daoxian couldn't wait to practice Yujian and fly immediately. For Edgeworth flying, Qin Daoxian has long been envious. Even before he established the foundation, he had already purchased a suitable flying sword technique in Guang'an Prefecture. The name of this light is called Jianguang Huahong, a very common technique of flying with the sword. But for Qin Daoxian, who was flying with the sword for the first time, the feeling is definitely different, because before that he was flying using the wind control technique. Although Qin Daoxian was actually able to fly with his sword after the first tempering of his infuriating energy, because at that time, his true qi was at least 3 times stronger than that of ordinary cultivators in the late stage of qi refining. But at that time he was preoccupied with building the foundation. How can I have time to study the flying of the sword? Because Yu Jian's flying speed is extremely fast, far exceeding the wind control of monks in the refining period. Therefore, even if there is a base-building cultivator who can't beat the qi-refining cultivator, it is impossible for the qi-refining cultivator to do anything to the foundation-building cultivator. After all, someone else's sword light flashed, and it immediately turned into a light and flew away. Qi-refining cultivators rely on the wind-fighting technique, so they can't even eat ashes in the back. The next day, Qin Daoxian's life has returned to peace again. Because he had just broken through to foundation establishment, Qin Daoxian was hardly in a hurry to practice the foundation establishment period, but chose to polish his newly broken through true qi. At this point, is especially important for sword cultivators. This is also mentioned in Zhou Mubai's Kendo Inheritance Jade Slip. After the sword cultivator has tempered his true essence, remember not to rush to practice attribute exercises. It is only when the sword essence is polished to the level of ordinary real essence that it is like an arm and a finger, before choosing to practice the foundation building stage. Only in this way will it not affect the speed of subsequent cultivation. Sword intent will make the real essence stronger after tempering, and it will also increase the difficulty of cultivation. In fact, this principle is basically universal. The power of the top-level exercises means that the true essence cultivated is stronger than that of the monks of the same level. But at the same time, it is also the most difficult to practice top-level exercises. Like the kind of exercises that are easy to practice and powerful, you can only find them in your dreams. Therefore, cultivators need to be very careful when they choose to switch to practice after the foundation is established, because this will affect a monk's future path. For monks, it is not that the stronger the power of the exercises, the better. Some people have bad aptitude. It was a fluke to be able to build a foundation. At this time he chose to choose those powerful exercises, which often made it difficult to practice after the foundation was established, and even stuck in the tragic situation of being unable to advance an inch in the initial stage of foundation building. At this moment, it is easy for others to choose to cultivate, but the exercises with mediocre power may have entered the middle stage of foundation establishment or the later stage of foundation establishment, even if it is the same level. When others practice weak exercises, they are not your opponents, but it is not easy for others to beat you in the early stage. More importantly, others will have more chances to break through to Zifu than you. This is the most important. After all, the primary goal of a monk's practice is basically to achieve longevity. If there is no such thing as a catastrophe, maybe no one will choose to practice powerful but difficult exercises. Sequoia Island. A ray of light instantly cut through the sky. Landed on the Wanghai Pavilion. Looking at the endless sea, Qin Daoxian could only feel the joy in his chest. 2 months. In addition to his busy family affairs. Basically all of his energy is used to practice the sword light Huaihong escape technique. After 6 full epiphanies, he finally cultivated this technique to a perfect state. At this moment, He used this technique, and in the eyes of outsiders, it was really fast like a rainbow light. Is almost not much slower than the speed of the Zifu cultivator. This is why it will be judged like this. It was because Qin Daoxian had been on the Zhou family's Spirit Void battleship and knew how fast the Zifu cultivator was escaping. He felt that his speed was no less than the fastest speed of the Spirit Void battleship. Looked at the sea scenery. Qin Daoxian's Jingguang volume. Flew back toward Jianghu Island. Less than a few hundred interest. Qin Daoxian's escape light spanned a distance of 400 miles and landed in the spiritual vein of Jianghu Island. Compared to before, his speed was dozens of times faster. Just when he was excited and had a great time playing, Qin Xinhe found him. Has Lingrui City been built? Qin Daoxian looked at Qin Xinhe in surprise. Think carefully. The Yang family proposed to build Lingrui City, but it was only 2 or 3 years ago. So fast. In just 2 or 3 years a fairy city was built. Just don't know. What price did the Guang'an Immortal Alliance, led by the Yang family, pay in order to build the Lingri Immortal City? Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian smiled and said, since it's completed, let's go and see the excitement. Compared to before the foundation, Qin Daoxian became much calmer after successfully building the foundation. He knows. All of this comes from his own strength. During the qi refining period, he can be invincible even during the qi refining period. But in Guang'an Prefecture, being invincible during the qi refining period is far from enough. There are thousands of foundation-building cultivators in the Zhou family in Guang'an Prefecture alone, and the entire Guang'an Prefecture is counted as scattered cultivators, and there are tens of thousands of foundation-building cultivators. That's it. Not counting the loose cultivators and foundation cultivators on the front lines of Izumo. There are so many base-building cultivators, and the previous Qin Daoxian is basically no match for any of them. And now, with him, he built the foundation of the strongest swordsmanship. The realm of Kendo has skyrocketed. Qin Daoxian dare not say that he can match the cultivator of Zifu, but among the cultivators of the foundation building, he basically can't find an opponent. Look at it this way. The huge Guang'an mansion, only the Zhou family, the Yang family, the Wu family, and the Zhao family can really be in the eyes of Qin Daoxian. Even. In addition to the Zhou family and the Yang family, there are cultivators in Zifu. The Wu family and the Zhao family are just a little more cultivator of the foundation. In front of the current Qin Daoxian, the cultivator of the foundation is just a chicken and a dog, not worth mentioning. Chapter 136. Months later. A ray of light pierced the sky. That's Jianghu Island, sky. Qin Daoxian, who was dressed in white, pointed to the circular island below, like a big sun falling on the sea, and introduced. Jianghu Island of the Yang family. Qin Xinhe nodded. I've only heard of its name for a long time, and this is my first time here. Speaking of which, Qin Xinhe sighed. Guang'an Mansion is really too big. If a cultivator wants to travel all over the Guang'an Mansion during the qi refining period, it may not be possible to drive a boat for several months. Which is like a monk in the foundation establishment period who can fly with light. Said, looking at Qin Daoxian and the sword light under his feet with admiration. The second-order high-grade shadow-carrying sword, the sword glow that erupts can reach a length of more than 9 feet. At this moment, this second-order flying sword burst out with a sword beam several feet long, wrapping the two figures and breaking through the wind in the sky. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian nodded and said, the foundation-building cultivator is indeed much faster than the qi-refining cultivator. The last time I came here I had to come here nearly a month earlier. Like today we arrived in less than half a day. Talking room. Jianghu Island is getting closer. Qin Daoxian immediately lowered his light and flew towards the newly built Lingrui Immortal City on Jianghu Island. On the vast plains of Jianghu Island not far from the harbor, a huge fairy city stands here. Although compared with the Immortal City of Guang'an Prefecture, this Immortal City is slightly inferior in scale. But the aura inside is no less than that of Guang'an House. Even because the Guang'an Immortal League has released most of the restrictions on spiritual eyes, the concentration of spiritual energy in the entire Spirit Day City is even higher than that of Guang'an Mansion. Although the scale of Lingrui City is smaller than that of Guang'an Prefecture Xianqing, its popularity does not seem to be low at all. May have been informed in advance that Lingrui City was completely built today. The scattered cultivators who settled on the spiritual veins of the Guang'an Xianming for thousands of miles came over to cheer. In the past 2 or 3 years, how many scattered cultivators have chosen to settle in the spiritual veins established by the Guang'an Immortal League? according to the rough estimate of the Zhou family. In the entire Guang'an prefecture, at least more than 30% of the loose cultivators have come to settle in the spiritual veins of the Guang'an Immortal League. Judging from the total number of millions of scattered cultivators in Guang'an prefecture, the stray cultivators who went to Lingrui City today, there are millions of people, even surpassed the flow of people in Xianqing Guang'an prefecture. Near Lingrui City, the light in the sky suddenly became more and more. In the past, when I was practicing qi, I was always envious when I saw these lights whizzing through the air. Become one of them today. Qin Daoxian felt very strange. The light fell. Qin Daoxian and Qin Xinhe landed at the gate of Lingrui City. Is the same as the immortal city of Guang'an. Lingrui City also adopts the method of inner and outer cities. The outer city is an open city inhabited by mortals, which can always expand outwards, while the inner city is where the immortal city is located, built on a third-order spiritual vein. The reason why the city wall was built, of course not to defend against foreign enemies, but to isolate mortals and monks, to some extent, is also a kind of protection for mortals by major forces. Because the monk's strength is too strong, mortals are not much different from ants in front of them. If the two are not separated, and if the immortals and the mortals are completely mixed together, the mortals are easily oppressed by the monks. Maybe even slaughtered by some monks with bad temperament. And so, even if the major spiritual forces punish the cultivator who committed the crime afterwards, the damage already caused is irreversible. Therefore, the major powers of practice build immortal cities, and they will not mix monks and mortals together. Even from family members. Lingrui City Gate. Compared with the city wall that cannot be seen at a glance, the city gate of Lingrui City is equally wide. Visual inspection. At least tens of zhang wide and nearly 100 zhang high, no smaller than the city gate of Guang'an Prefecture. There are 9 such city gates in the entire Spirit Sun City. Such giant walls and giant gates. It can only be built by the power of monks. If it is replaced by ordinary mortals, even mortals in the congenital stage cannot build it at all. Qin Daoxian glanced at the long queue of cultivators in the qi refining period, waiting at the gate of the city. He and Qin Xinhe stood at the gate dedicated to the cultivators of the foundation establishment period and withdrew their gazes. "Senior, please go inside." At the gate of the city, a cultivator of the Yang family in the late stage of qi refining, respectfully bowed his hands to Qin Daoxian. Qin Daoxian nodded and together with Qin Xinhe, walked into Lingrui City with his head held high. Enter Lingrui City. The two walked around for several hours. Only then did I feel the prosperity of Lingrui City. Although Lingrui City has just been built, the families of Guang'an Xianmeng have spared no effort in making Lingrui City popular. All kinds of resources in each store's inventory are sold. For a while, the major shops of Lingrui City are filled with various kinds of goods. Is not inferior to the scene when the Guang'an Prefecture Xianqing held an auction. On the street, pedestrian monks rubbing shoulders crowded. Qin Daoxian had a feeling of rushing to the Chunyan railway station in his previous life. Just after sensing his cultivation, none of the cultivators dared to squeeze him. Circled around him, forming a vacuum layer. Qin Daoxian knew. This is the awe of the low-level monks to the high-level monks. This kind of reverence stems from the ability of high-level monks to completely crush low-level monks. The two were hanging out in the room. Qin Daoxian and Qin Xinhe chatted. Qin Xinhe sighed. It seems that Lingrui City has really become a climate. Yes, Qin Daoxian nodded. Although he had expected the achievements of Lingrui City, he still did not expect it to come so quickly and so fiercely. The establishment of Lingrui City also had a greater impact on the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture than imagined. Now, I don't know how the Zhou family will respond. Hear this. Qin Xinhe couldn't help frowning. The dispute between the Zhou family and the Guang'an Xianmeng, the Qin family as a newly emerging foundation-building family, is undoubtedly the last thing they want to see. Of course, if the two tigers really want to fight, it will not be good for the Qin family. Then it depends on the ability of the person at the helm of the Qin family to jump left and right. At this point, Qin Daoxian also saw how those small countries survived in the cracks of big countries in his previous life. Is not without experience. Of course, the current Qin family, Qin Daoxian alone, is not weak among all the foundation-building families in Guang'an Prefecture. A sword cultivator who can be called invincible in the foundation-building period. Even a new Zifu family like the Yang family has to pay attention. The current Guang'an Prefecture. On the family background, Qin Daoxian roughly divided it into 5 grades. The one in the first gear is naturally the Zhou family. All the clans in Guang'an Prefecture combined cannot compete with the Zhou clan. The second tier of is the Yang family, Wu family, and Zhao family, the newly promoted Zifu family and the foundation building family. The third gear is the ordinary foundation building family. These foundation building families have dozens to hundreds of foundation building monks, and the entire family has tens of thousands of monks. The fourth grade of is those small families who are lucky enough to become the foundation building family. For example, in some chi refining family, 2 people broke through the foundation building stage, or a small family with only dozens or hundreds of chi refining cultivators broke through to the foundation building stage on the battlefield of Izumo. The Mo family back then, if the patriarch entered the foundation building stage, he could probably be classified into this level. The last level, the 5th level, is all the chi refining families. Of course, there are strong and weak points in the chi refining family. For example, the Mo family back then had nearly 100 chi refining cultivators, and even a patriarch who was near the foundation building stage. The weak ones were like the Qin family more than 5 years ago, with only 1 or 2 chi refining cultivators. If the current Qin family were to be divided, they could probably be classified into the 3rd tier. Is also an ordinary foundation building family with dozens or hundreds of foundation building monks in the clan. Because in terms of strength, Qin Daoxian alone is enough to surpass dozens or hundreds of monks at the foundation stage. From the perspective of the background, the monks of the Qin Jiafu generation have sprung up like mushrooms after a rain and continue to grow. The profit earned by the family in the magic weapon market has also continued to hit new highs every year. From this angle, can even rank the Qin family at the forefront of the 3rd tier family. Of course, although the Qin family has this strength in terms of the current prestige, it is far from matching its strength. The reasons for this are complicated. There is a reason why the Qin family keeps a low profile and immerses themselves in development. There is also the reason why Qin Daoxian succeeded in building a foundation and became the 2nd sword cultivator in Guang'an Prefecture after Zhou Mubai, but it was not known to the outside world. Chapter 137. It's useless to think too much, let's go. Qin Xinhe shook his head. Okay. Qin Daoxian nodded, and immediately flew into the sky with Qin Xinhe with a scroll of sword light. There is a big difference between Lingrui City and Guang'an Mansion Xianqing, that is, its forbidden air formation only works for cultivators in the chi refining stage, and is useless for cultivators in the foundation building stage. Therefore, in Lingrui City, one after another can often be seen flying over the heads of everyone. And in the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture. Not to mention the foundation building cultivator, even if the Zifu cultivator came, he had to walk honestly. Of course, apart from the Zhou family in Guang'an Mansion, no other family owned cultivators from the Purple Mansion, so there was no problem of banning the cultivators from the Purple Mansion. Lingrui City does this. Undoubtedly, the goodwill of the foundation building monks in Guang'an Prefecture has been greatly increased. The cultivators of the foundation establishment period were used to flying in evasion, and letting them walk was a bit embarrassing for a while. It's just that due to the Zhou family's rules, the cultivators are also suffering. Moreover, the cultivators in the chi refining period were not very opposed to Lingrui City's move. After all, in the world of cultivating immortals, the notion that cultivation base determines one's status is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. 2 monks who don't know each other, their seniority depends entirely on their cultivation. Even if Qin Daoxian is only 21 years old now, a 100-year-old chi refining cultivator who doesn't know him sees him for the first time, so he has to call him a senior. This senior has nothing to do with age, but a respectful title for the pioneers on the road of cultivation. The core hall of the Guang'an Xianmeng is set up over Lingrui City. It is the same as the floating fairy palace that Qin Daoqiu envisioned. Guang'an Xianmeng used a floating formation to suspend a spiritual mountain in mid-air. The clouds above the spiritual mountain were misty, and there were palaces looming in it, like a fairyland. Not to mention how much the Guang'an Xianmeng would be abolished by bringing a spiritual mountain to the sky. Just to say that it looks like this, Qin Daoxian has to give the other party a full score. At least he was really shocked after seeing this floating mountain. Brush. Qin Daoxian and Qin Xian's escape light landed before the foot of Lingshan Mountain. At the foot of the mountain, a ladder swayed up like a ladder to the sky. At the end of the stairs there are faint palaces. Really like a fairyland. Qin Daoxian and Qin Xinhe looked at each other and walked to the Guang'an Xianmeng attendant who was in charge of reception at the foot of the mountain. Talking. Qin Daoxian handed over the invitation. Jianghu Island. The waiter in charge of the reception was a foundation-building cultivator. He looked at Qin Daoxian with a surprised look on his face, and immediately opened the invitation card that Qin Daoxian handed over, nodded and said, "Fellow Taoist, please go up the mountain." "Thank you." Qin Daoxian nodded. "Wait." Just as Qin Daoxian raised his footsteps, he was stopped by the other party. "Fellow Taoist, forgive me, this celebration is a banquet invited by my Guang'an Xianmeng to the major foundation-building families. I also ask this fellow Taoist to stay." After speaking, he stopped in front of Qin Xianhe and shook his head slightly. When Qin Daoxian heard this, his face suddenly turned cold. "What do you mean, fellow Taoist? Could it be that you are trying to make things difficult for us?" "My fellow Taoist, forgive me." The other party just dropped this sentence and no longer explained it. But the attitude is very firm, that is, not to let Qin Xianhe pass. Just when Qin Daoxian was about to turn his face, a charming voice sounded from the front. "Isn't this fellow Taoist Qin?" heard. Qin Daoxian turned his head to the side and saw Yang Gongwan in the front left, his expression still cold. He was invited by the Yang family to participate in the celebration of Spirit Sun City, but he was harassed by the cultivator who was in charge of welcoming him. "Fairy Yang, long time no see." Qin Daoxian bowed his hands stiffly. Sorry, Yang Gongwan smiled and said, "This celebration is so busy that I forgot to say hello to fellow Taoist Wu." Immediately Yang Gongwan changed his words and said, "I haven't seen you for a few years." Dao Yu Qin is not only in good spirits, but also has successfully established his foundation. It's really gratifying to congratulate. Talking. She introduced Qin Daoxian. "This is Dao Yu Wu from Fengwu Island, and this is Dao Yu Qin from Jianghu Island." Gongwan apologized to the two of them again, and it was all my fault for being negligent, which almost made the two of them unhappy. Having said that, Yang Gongwan bowed to Qin Daoxian and the Wu family cultivator. "It's all about this." When Qin Daoxian pursued it further, it seemed that he was messing around. The Wu family cultivator seemed to be quite fascinated by Yang Gongwan, and there was a trace of greed hidden in the depths of his eyes when he looked at her. Then he apologized to Qin Daoxian and said, "It turns out that fellow Taoist was invited by the Yang family, but just now he was abrupt." After speaking, the fake orangutan bowed to Qin Daoxian. "No problem." Qin Daoxian replied coldly. "Say it." Qin Daoxian walked up the mountain with Qin Xianhe. "Fellow Taoist Qin, how about a pier?" Yang Gongwan said and chased after Qin Daoxian. On the stairs, several people have been silent. "A long time." Qin Daoxian said quietly, "Fairy Yang is a good way." Who knows? After hearing this, Yang Gongwan's pretty face is full of puzzlement. What does Dao Yu Qin mean? "It's okay, I'll make a slip of the tongue next time." Say it. Along the way, Qin Daoxian and Qin Xianhe said nothing and walked towards the palace on Lingshan with their heads covered. Yang Gongwan also lowered her head silently, wondering what she was thinking. In the Lingshan Palace group, Yang Gongwan walked to a pavilion on the back mountain. Inside the pavilion, an old man with a childish face stared blankly at the spirit fish in the spirit pond, wondering what he was thinking. "Grandfather." Seeing Yang Linyuan, Yang Gongwan hurriedly saluted. Hearing this call, Yang Linyuan sighed and then smiled. "Wainer, you are not busy outside, why did you come here to find me?" Who knows to hear this? Yang Gongwan looked a little aggrieved and said, "Grandfather, Gongwan just did something wrong." Saying that, she told Yang Linyuan the scene just now. After listening, Yang Linyuan shook his head and sighed, "You are more than clever but not wise enough." He paused. "The relationship between the Wu and Qin families, why do you need to provoke them? Under the conflict of interest, they will naturally be on the same page in the future." Wainer knows she's wrong. Yang Gongwan lowered her head. Seeing her granddaughter's appearance, Yang Linyuan couldn't bear to blame and comforted, "But this move can be regarded as burying a thorn in the hearts of Chen and Wu, and it is not completely a bad thing." He clearly knew that his grandfather was comforting him. But after hearing this comforting voice, Yang Gongwan felt much better. Compared to this little thing Yang Gongwan said. At this moment, Yang Linyuan felt like a heavy rock was pressing down in his heart. He had a vague feeling. Perhaps in the near future, Guang'an Prefecture will really change. Not only the completion of Lingrui City had a huge impact on the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture. Also because of a tragic incident that happened to the Wu family in the past 2 months. Think about it. Yang Linyuan didn't even have the mood to preside over the celebration of Spirit Sun City. But he thought about it. In Guang'an Prefecture, Except for a few families, no one has the strength to do such a thing. Among these families, only the Zhou family has both strength and motivation. Chapter 138. Boom, boom, boom. The melodious bells rang on the Lingshan mountain of Guang'an Xianmeng. It heralds the beginning of the celebration. Numerous monks from the foundation building period gathered together, standing on the square in front of the main palace, in groups of 3 and 5 chatting with each other. Most of the foundation building cultivators usually practice in their respective families, and the number of public appearances is not comparable to that of the qi refining cultivators. Therefore, this celebration of the completion of Lingrui City can be regarded as a rare gathering of the monks who build the foundation. As a new foundation building family, the Chen family is not well known among the many foundation building families in Guang'an Prefecture, but no one took the initiative to approach him and talk to the two of them. Brother Chen. Just as he was thinking that no one was talking, a call came from behind him. A young figure appeared in front of Qin Daoxian. This person looks like he is in his 20s, with peach blossom eyes and a slightly frivolous smile on the corner of his mouth. Who is Zhou Xiliang, the son of Zhou Muqing? Brother Zhou. Qin Daoxian reacted immediately and congratulated Zhou Xiliang. Congratulations to Zhou Xiliang for his successful foundation building. Haha, the same joy. Zhou Xiliang's success in building a foundation surprised Qin Daoxian. But the last time I saw him, Zhou Xiliang was already at the 9th level of qi refining, and it was not too surprising that the foundation was successfully established now. Zhou Xiliang greeted Qin Daoxian and hurriedly greeted Qin Xian. Xiliang has seen Uncle Chen. Good, good. Qin Xianhe stroked his beard with a smile and said, looking at your appearance, you must have come with Brother Zhou? Uncle Zhou is here too? Hearing this, Zhou Si nodded his head. My father is indeed here. Speaking of this, Zhou Xiliang's words flickered a bit. Qin Daoxian didn't care and said with a smile, in that case, let's meet up together. Zhou Muqing was very helpful to the Qin family back then. If it weren't for Zhou Muqing's influence, the Qin family would not have imagined that it would be so easy to take over the magic weapon market in Sangxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture. This time since we met, it is necessary to come forward and say hello. When Zhou Xiliang heard this, he hesitated for a while before nodding and saying, then I will bring the two of you there, please. Under the guidance of Zhou Xiliang, Qin Daoxian and Qin Xianhe met Zhou Muqing and the monks of the patrol fleet under his command. Qin Daoxian is quite familiar with these people and has drunk a lot of wine with them. Uncle Zhou. Seeing Zhou Muqing, Qin Daoxian smiled and bowed his hands. Daoxian. Seeing Qin Daoxian, the worry on Zhou Muqing's face quickly subsided, and he looked at him in surprise and said, have you established a foundation? Lucky. Qin Daoxian smiled and cupped his hands. Brother Zhou. Brother Qin. After seeing the ceremony with Qin Xianhe, Zhou Muqing continued, unexpectedly, in less than 4 years, you actually cultivated all the way from the 7th level of qi refining to the foundation building stage, and I am afraid that the Zifu will be promising in the future. Uncle Zhou is wrong. Qin Daoxian bowed his hands. Brother Xiliang is the dragon among men, and the Zifu can be expected in the future. Zhou Muqing felt great comfort when he heard Qin Daoxian praise his son. In his heart, the baby son's ability to build a foundation was indeed beyond his expectations. Originally, he thought that he would be satisfied if he could use resources to smash his son to the foundation building stage within 10 years. I didn't expect it to take just over 3 years. Zhou Xiliang actually took a foundation building pill by himself, secretly building foundation without his knowledge, and it was successful. Every time I think about it, while Zhou Mu was proud to be his son, he was also afraid. Although the success rate of foundation building Dan is 70% to 80%, once the foundation building fails, the Dantian Qi Si will be broken, and the consequences will be very serious. But luckily Zhou Xiliang succeeded. Of course, Zhou Xiliang's aptitude Zhou Muqing knew in his heart, no accident, being able to build a foundation is the limit of his life. Z mansion or something, if there is no great chance, it is no different from a dream. Uncle Zhou, are you here also to celebrate the completion of Lingrui City? Qin Daoxian was quite surprised. It stands to reason that with the establishment of Lingzhou City, the Zhou family should not be furious, right? Why is there still time to send someone to celebrate? This is obviously not the Zhou family's way of doing things. Qin Xianhe on the side coughed when he heard the words. Qin Daoxian turned his head, but saw Qin Xianhe shaking his head at him. Brother Qin doesn't have to cover for me, Zhou Muqing sighed and smiled bitterly, I came this time to apologize to the Wu family on behalf of the Zhou family. Apologize to the Wu family? The more Qin Daoxian listened, the more confused he became. Obviously, he had been living on Jianghu Island during this period of time, and something happened in Guang'an Prefecture that he didn't know about. Ugh. Zhou Muqing sighed, speaking of which, we are also unlucky. 2 months ago, the Wu family had a cargo ship full of second-order artifacts and spiritual ore to Guang'an Prefecture, but an accident happened on the way. What does it have to do with the Wu family's cargo ship carrying the magical instruments? Qin Daoxian frowned. Daoxian, you don't know, it's not just the cargo ships that transport the instruments because the Wu family's goods are very valuable, so they sent a large number of monks to them. Just the Wu family's foundation-building monks, there are 136 people. What? Hearing this, Qin Daoxian could no longer contain his surprise. More than 100 cultivators of the foundation establishment period died in Guang'an Mansion, and even their bodies could not be found. This kind of thing is too sensational. There are more than 100 foundation-building cultivators, even if the cultivator of Zifu personally takes action. Whether they can win the other party is a matter of two things. Even if they are not the opponents of the Zifu cultivator, so many base-building cultivators have fled in the light of the light, so it's not impossible for all of them to escape, right? Although Zifu is strong, it is not strong enough to kill more than 100 foundation-building cultivators in seconds. At least Qin Daoxian and Zifu cultivator fought once. He knew very well that Zifu cultivator was not that strong. In particular, the Wu family was good at refining weapons, and their foundation-building monks must have spirit armor to protect themselves. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for the Wu family's foundation-building cultivator to escape, which was obviously not something ordinary cultivators of the Zifu could do. Could it be Jindan cultivator? Qin Daoxian was taken aback by his speculation. Impossible. But then Qin Daoxian shook his head again. Not to mention that there are no Jindan cultivators in Guang'an Mansion. Even if Jindan cultivators from outside Sangzhou pass by Guang'an Mansion, it is impossible for them to attack a group of foundation-building cultivators for no reason. Isn't this giving the handle to Qianyuan Jianzong? This matter is really going to go up. It is impossible for Qianyuan Jianzong to find out. To know. Qianyuan Jianzong has a spell called Time Recall, and they want to escape their pursuit unless they use special means to disrupt the secret. Obviously, it is impossible for ordinary Jindan cultivators to have this ability. After thinking about it, Qin Daoxian couldn't come up with a result. But what does this have to do with you, Uncle Zhou? Qin Daoxian was very puzzled. Hearing this, Zhou Xiliang on the side sighed and said helplessly, my father happened to be in charge of the safety of the route that the Wu family cultivators traveled on that day. Hear this. Qin Daoxian finally figured out the cause and effect of the matter. The Wu family lost more than 100 foundation-building cultivators, and lost a ship of magic tools and spiritual ore. And Zhou Muqing of the Zhou family happened to be in charge of the safety of the route that the Wu family sailed at that time. This incident has caused a lot of uproar in Guang'an Prefecture, and now my family, large and small, in Xianqing, Guang'an Prefecture, is doubting my Zhou family's ability to protect the safety of the airline. When Zhou Muqing said this, he clenched his fists tightly. In fact, he also knew that it was fortunate that they were not present that day, otherwise it would have just added a few more bodies. A figure that the more than 100 foundation-building cultivators of the Wu family could not bear. What can the more than 20 foundation establishment monks on a mere spirit void battleship do? Things say so. But other family panics belong to them. Because all the other families are now suspecting that this was done by the Zhou family. Just because the Wu family is one of the main members of the Guang'an Immortal League. In order to retaliate against the Wu family, the Zhou family killed all the monks who transported goods in his family, killing the chickens and serving as an example. Forced the families to withdraw from the Guang'an Immortal League. Actually, as long as anyone with a brain thinks about this matter, they will know that it cannot be done by the Zhou family. Because of the existence of Qianyuan Sword Sect, it is impossible for the Zhou family to take such a big risk to do this. But the question is, if it's not the Zhou family who has the strength and motivation to do this. At present, this incident has not been spread among the scattered cultivation, otherwise the impact will be even worse. The Zhou family's food looks so ugly, who would dare to go to the immortal city of Guang'an in the future? It's not that no one has thought about whether it will be directed and acted by the people of Guang'an Xianmeng. But on second thought, who would sacrifice the lives of more than 100 foundation establishment cultivators for acting? That was nearly a quarter of the foundation-building cultivators in the Wu family, Because of this incident, the Wu family was completely devastated, and I am afraid that it will be difficult to restore the past glory in the future. Just among a few people talking, the celebration of Spirit Day City begins. On the square, Yang Linyuan, who was dressed in a gray Taoist robe, stepped on the auspicious clouds and flew up. Qin Daoxian knew that the auspicious cloud under his feet was not a real auspicious cloud, but a special flying instrument. But at this moment, when it is displayed in front of everyone, it reflects the word Xianfeng Daogu incisively and vividly. Really? Everyone was attracted by Yang Ancestor, and they all quieted down. Thank you, fellow Taoists, for coming to the celebration of the inauguration of my Spirit Day Immortal City, today. Above the auspicious clouds, Yang Linyuan smiled and talked eloquently. Hopefully, in the future we can work together to make Lingrui City even more prosperous. Just finished speaking. Yang Linyuan was about to leave, but unexpectedly, a voice suddenly sounded at this moment. Wait, everyone. The person who spoke was an old man with a complete foundation. The old man had a broad face and a broad nose, a solemn face, and a look of no anger and self-righteousness. Coupled with his tall and straight figure, it made people look quite oppressive. Seeing the old man, Yang Linyuan sighed and said through a voice transmission, Brother Wu, how about we discuss this matter later? I, Yang, hereby swear that I will definitely get justice for the more than 100 cultivators of your Wu family. Heard? Wu Guangyi shook his head. Brother Yang, my Wu family wants this justice today. As he said that, his face was tragic, otherwise the hearts of my Wu family will be completely dissipated. Chapter 139. Seeing the figure of the old man, all the monks who knew the inside story stopped. Wu Guangyi watched everyone stop, bowed his hands to everyone and said, Thank you, fellow Taoists, for your righteousness. I, Mr. Wu, hereby thank you all. Talking. Wu Guangyi bowed his hands to all the monks present. At this time, a cultivator off the field said, Don't worry, fellow Taoist Wu, my Guang'an Mansion cultivator has not been cowardly to this level. Talking room. The rough-faced late-stage foundation-building cultivator had an indifferent expression. Obviously, this was a foundation-building loose cultivator. Thank you, fellow Taoist Lei, for your righteous words. Wu Guangyi clearly recognized the loose cultivator who was speaking and cupped his hands. Everyone, 2 months ago, 136 members of my Wu family transported a ship of second-order magic tools and spiritual ore to the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture. But something unexpected happened on the way. I would like to ask everyone present, how could the more than 100 foundation-building cultivators with spirit armors die on the way to Guang'an Mansion? In our Guang'an Prefecture, who can have this strength? The guts? Wu Guangyi's voice was deafening and the whole person was furious. Zhou Muqing's chest heaved up and down when he heard this. But he knew that at this moment, whether it was for the family or himself, he had to stand up. Brother Wu, if you have something to say, please say it clearly, you don't have to point at Sang and scold Huai. Okay. Wu Guangyi shouted, I suspect your Zhou family. All this is done by your Zhou family. He stood in the air, pointed his hand directly at Zhou Muqing's nose and said loudly. This moment, the hearts of all the cultivators present twitched. The Wu family is the pillar family of the Guang'an Immortal League, and the other is the representative of the Zhou family, the overlord of Guang'an Prefecture. Brother Wu, do you know what you are talking about? Zhou Muqing's mood suddenly calmed down at this moment, staring at the other side intently. Of course I know what I'm talking about. Wu Guangyi shouted, Brother Yang told me let me bear it, and the strength of my Wu family also told me let me bear it. But I am the patriarch of the tens of thousands of monks in the Wu family. More than 100 cultivators of my Wu family died inexplicably. I can't bear this tone, and my Wu family's tens of thousands of cultivators can't bear it. Wu Guangyi, you and I were considered to have been on the Zhenangwan battlefield together back then, you should know who I am. Would you believe me if I told you that this was not my Zhou family's doing? Zhou Muqing said seriously. Wu Guangyi's eyes flickered, obviously he was extremely restless at the moment. Okay. Wu Guangyi nodded, I'll believe what you said for the time being, then tell me when you were the deacon of the Wu family patrol fleet, why did more than 100 cultivators in my Wu family die? Not only did you not rescue them but you didn't even know it at all? Hearing this, Zhou Muqing was completely speechless. No matter what happened, his dereliction of duty was inescapable. Even if the matter is resolved, his status in the Zhou family will plummet in the future. Brother Wu, I'm sorry. Zhou Muqing bowed his hands and the whole person seemed to have aged a bit. Seeing the appearance of this old brother who was in the same defense zone with him back then, Wu Guangyi opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. Half an hour. Wu Guangyi took a deep breath and said with red eyes, "It's useless for you to apologize to me, you are not qualified. I want Zhou Mubai to apologize. I want Zhou Mubai to swear that this is not the Zhou family's actions." Boom. This sentence immediately caused an uproar at the scene. Was Zhou Mubai Guang'an sword immortal, Zifu Tianjiao list Tianjiao Zhou family young patriarch. That is the pride of the entire Zhou family. Wu Guangyi asked Zhou Mubai to apologize to the Wu family, which undoubtedly stepped on the Zhou family's face. Not only that, Wu Guangyi even made Zhou Mubai swear. You must know that the oath in the mouth of the monk generally refers to the oath of the Great Way. This kind of oath cannot be made indiscriminately, and a little mistake will inevitably affect the road. Therefore basically not many monks are willing to take this oath. Old Ghost Wu, don't deceive people too much. Hearing this, Zhou Muqing was also angry, and made Zhou Mubai swear that if he dared to go back and say this, the Zhou family would tear him alive. I deceived your Zhou family today, what's wrong? I don't believe it. In front of thousands of fellow practitioners on the court today, your Zhou family can silence so many of us. Zhou Muqing, Guang'an Mansion is the Guang'an Mansion of Qianyuan Sword Sect, not your Zhou families. Wu Guangyi glared angrily. You. Zhou Muqing was so angry that he was speechless when he heard these words of heart-punching. He said in a low voice, "What do you want? Say something." I said, "Let Zhou Mubai apologize and swear that this is not the Zhou family's doing." Wu Guangyi did not give in. Old Ghost Wu, this is impossible. Zhou Muqing calmed down again. Why don't you be like this? You and I bet once. Bet what? Wu Guangyi raised his brows and said. Bet my life. Zhou Muqing looked at the other party. You and I are both cultivators. Since we can't agree, let's judge right or wrong based on strength. If I lose, my life will be given to you, and your Wu family will never mention this again. Father. Zhou Xiliang, who was beside him, became anxious when he heard this. Zhou Muqing glanced at his son dotingly, and immediately resolutely said, "If I win, your Wu family must not mention this again in the future." Hear this. Wu Guangyi looked directly at the other party and said, "Are you sure you want to bet your life and death with me?" Brother Wu, Zhou Muqing cupped his hands. You are the head of the Wu clan, I am a member of the Zhou clan, you and I are both family members, there is no right or wrong. If there is a chance in the next life, Zhenengwen will fight again. Okay. Wu Guangyi took a deep breath and nodded. If there is a chance in the next life, we must fight again. In fact, Wu Guangyi already faintly believed in his heart at this moment that this matter was not done by the Zhou family. But the people of the Wu family didn't believe it, and the comrades in Guang'an didn't believe it. He is the head of the Wu family, he must unite the hearts of the people, and he must maintain the face of the Wu family in front of his colleagues in Guang'an. Because this is the last thing the Wu family has. Losing these, just as Wu Guangyi said, the family's heart will be scattered. To get these, Zhou Mubai's apology and swearing are naturally the best. But if not, the life of a Zhou family base-building cultivator is not bad. Seeing the two make a life and death pact. Those present knew that this was probably the end of the matter. It doesn't matter if this is what the Zhou family did or not. The life of a Zhou family foundation-building cultivator was the Zhou family's biggest concession to the Guang'an Mansion comrades. See this scene. Yang Linyuan sighed. Regardless of the outcome of this matter, the confrontation between the Guang'an Xianmeng and the Zhou family will be irreversible. To be honest, in the depths of Yang Linyuan's heart at this moment, he faintly regretted the creation of Guang'an Xianmeng. Because of this alliance, it may cause a turmoil that will bring disaster to the entire Guang'an prefecture. I troubled autumn. Yang Linyuan sighed. High in the air. Zhou Muqing and Wu Guangyi confronted each other in the air. All around, tens of thousands of Guang'an Manor's foundation-building cultivators watched from the sky. Unexpectedly, today you and I will be able to fight once in front of our colleagues in Guang'an. Zhou Muqing looked at the monks around and laughed in a hoarse voice. It's really unexpected. Wu Guangyi nodded. I didn't even expect that 50 years ago you were on the 7th floor of the foundation building. 50 years later, you are still on the 7th floor of the foundation building. Why, the more you live, the more you go back. Zhou Muqing also relaxed at the moment, shrugged and said, it would be good to be able to escape with one life back then, but there is no cost at all. Hear this. Wu Guangyi's voice was low. Actually, I know that this matter is not your Zhou family's actions, but I have no choice, brother Zhou, sorry, heard. Zhou Muqing smiled. It's not necessary, you and I are each family, no need to apologize. With that said, he finally glanced at his son Zhou Xiliang and said, it's up to you to live or die, come on. Okay. Wu Guangji's words fell. A body of spirit armor appeared. Obviously, in the face of Zhou Muqing, a 7-layer foundation-building cultivator, even though his cultivation was 3 layers higher, he did not dare to be careless. Opposite. Zhou Muqing also appeared in spirit armor. The streamlined spirit armor wraps the figures of the two, looking like steel warriors. Next moment, the two sword lights collided. Qin Daoxian looked at Zhou Xiliang beside him, anxious like an ant on a hot pot, and comforted, don't worry, Uncle Zhou has spirit armor on his body, even if he loses, his life will not be in danger. Relieved to hear this. Zhou Xiliang is like a drowning person grabbing the last straw. He kept repeating in his mouth, yes, yes, my father has a spirit armor to protect himself, and Mr. Wu can't do anything with him. Saying that, the whole person could not help but relax. Actually, Qin Daoxian didn't tell him what Zhou Muqing said just now was that as long as he lost, he would voluntarily lead to death. It is not easy for a monk of the same rank to kill a monk who is wearing spirit armor and flees for his life. But neither side runs away, and if they keep fighting, one side will always lose. For example, the real essence is exhausted. Just as Qin Daoxian expected. The battle between the two in the sky is getting more and more intense. Various second-order sword tactics were displayed, shrouding a radius of several kilometers in a sword light. Time flies by little by little. Blink of an eye. An hour has passed. Since both sides gave up their defenses and fought for their lives, the consumption of true qi was extremely terrifying. That is to say, the defensive power of the second-order high-grade spirit armor is very exaggerated. Zifu cultivator would have to waste a little bit of strength if he wanted to break open. 4 monks of the same rank, except for sword cultivators, few people can break the defense of second-rank high-grade spirit armor. Neither side could break through the other's defenses. The only thing left is to consume each other's true essence. To be frank, in Qin Daoxian's eyes, a fight of this level has no merit. In his eyes, the level of kendo on both sides was clumsy and ridiculous. But in the eyes of the many foundation-building cultivators present, the strength of these two is almost the top level among the foundation-building cultivators. Whether it is defense or attack, they have almost touched the ceiling of the base-building cultivator. Another half-hour passed. Under the high-intensity consumption, Zhou Muqing's real yuan is not as good as Wu Guangyi after all, and it begins to show a downward trend. Brother Zhou, you are defeated. The words fall. Wu Guangji's sword beam finally broke through Zhou Muqing's spirit armor. Because of Zhou Muqing, there is no real energy to maintain the consumption of spirit armor. Hey. Looking at the flying sword inserted into his chest, Zhou Muqing's face paled and he laughed. Old Ghost Wu, you have won. Chapter 140? Pity? Qin Xinhe shook his head. What a pity? Qin Daoxian looked at Qin Xinhe in confusion. Qin Xinhe sighed. I feel sorry for Brother Zhou. This shouldn't be the work of the Zhou family, but in order to calm the matter and buy time to investigate the matter, the Zhou family had to sacrifice Brother Zhou. Qin Daoxian frowned slightly. Can't the Zhou family report to Qinyuan Jianzong? Qin Xinhe shook his head and did not speak. At the same time, standing beside Yang Linyuan, Yang Gongwan asked the exact same question as Qin Daoxian. Grandfather, why didn't the Zhou family and the Wu family report this to the Qinyuan sword sect? Yang Gongwan looked at Yang Linyuan in confusion. Who knows that Yang Linyuan's expression froze slightly when he heard the words Qinyuan Jianzong. A long time. He sighed. It's not impossible but unwilling. Don't want to. That's right, Yang Linyuan nodded. Before the chaos of Xinjue, the Zhou family was the Jindan family, although after the chaos of Xinjue and the Battle of Zhenangguan, the vitality of the Zhou family was greatly damaged. But with the rise of Zhou Mubai, the Zhou family has a strength and prestige comparable to the peak of that year. Plus, their Zhou family wants to be the #1 family in Sangzhou. The first family in Sangzhou? Yang Gongwan said in surprise, why does the Zhou family? Before she finished speaking she thought of Zhou Mubai, and of Zhou Laozu, whose Zhou family was a step away from Jindan. Silent. At this moment Yang Gongwan vaguely understood why the Zhou family did this. The life of a derelict foundation-building clan quelled the anger of the major families in Guang'an, in exchange for the Zhou family's time to investigate the matter. In the Zhou family's view it's worth it. Otherwise, once this matter hits the Qinyuan sword sect, the Zhou family will not only lose face in front of their colleagues in Guang'an, but will also leave an image of incompetence for the entire Cangzhou colleagues. Until then, even if there is another Jindan cultivator from the Zhou family in the eyes of outsiders, it is no different from the current Yi family. How can a family that can't even settle the trivial matters in Guang'an Mansion become the first family in Cangzhou? The Zhou family needs time now to restore their lost face. At this point, Qin Xinhe understood it and Yang Linyuan also understood it. Even Zhou Muqing had this preparation in his heart before he came here. Then why didn't the Wu family report to Qinyuan Jianzong? Yang Gongwan looked at her grandfather again. Yang Linyuan said quietly, compared to the Zhou family, the more than 100 foundation-building cultivators lost by the Wu family have been completely lost. Rather than revenge, what they need is to think about the present and the future. Considering the present and the future? Yang Gongwan was even more confused when she heard this. Before the chaos of Divine Ju, the Wu family, like my Yang family, was a big family with nearly 10 cultivators of the Zifu. Over the years, the God's Rebellion and the Battle of Zenangwan, the Wu family has declined step by step until now. What they lost was not only their strength but also the shaky hearts of the clan, especially the fact that the Wu family lost more than 100 foundation-building cultivators this time, which was the last straw that overwhelmed the hearts of the Wu family. Compared with investigating the truth, Wu Guangji's first thing to do is to unite people's hearts. Yang Linyuan's eyes were deep, otherwise the hearts of the people will be scattered, and the family will be finished. Gather the hearts of the people. In this regard, Yang Gongwan felt quite a bit. Because once the Yang family, like the Wu family, declines step by step. As the strength of the family declines, there are also people who gradually dissipate. In this situation, it was not until Yang Linyuan broke through the Purple Mansion and formed the Guang'an Immortal League that the Yang family regained their confidence. Sometimes faith is not worth mentioning, but sometimes it is too important. Yang Linyuan didn't know that Yang Gongwan thought so much for a while and continued, as for the future. Wu Guangyi knew that what he wanted was to unite the hearts of the clan, not to offend the Zhou family completely. After all, there are still tens of thousands of monks in the Wu family, and they will continue the family in Guang'an Mansion in the future. If he ignored the report to Qinyuan sword sect, he would have slapped the Zhou family severely in front of his colleagues in Guang'an and even the whole of Cangzhou. No matter how things end, the Zhou and Wu families will have an endless relationship from now on. Will the Wu family and the Zhou family live forever? Hear this. Yang Gongwan suddenly became enlightened. For a cultivation force, strength is fundamental, but reputation and face are also very important. Even something second only to strength. The consequences of losing your reputation. Just look at the fate of the Yi family in Cangzhou. Not to mention in Wanxinghai, in Cangzhou, and even in Guang'an Prefecture, how many are actually selling Yi family accounts? The Yi family cultivators were ridiculed when they walked outside. Although the Cangzhou Yi family is known as the #1 family in Cangzhou, it is only barely capable of it, but in terms of reputation no family will recognize them. Now the Zhou and Wu families all want this face, and Zhou Muqing, who is dereliction of duty, is the victim of sacrifice. People talking. A new change has taken place on the field. Just as Zhou Muqing was slaughtered by the neck, Zhou Muqing's son Zhou Xiliang rushed forward regardless. The old thief of the Wu family, you dare to touch my father. Younger? Don't. Zhou Muqing blushed when he saw Zhou Xiliang's actions and said in shock. Zhou Xiliang didn't care about his seriously injured father's dissuasion, his eyes were red, and with a flash of light, he rushed towards Wu Guangyi. After all, not everyone is the same as Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai, who can fight beyond the ranks. Zhou Xiliang, a cultivator who has just established a foundation, is no match for Wu Guangyi, a cultivator who has completed foundation establishment. Roll. I saw a flash of sword light. Wu Guangji's flying sword appeared in front of Zhou Xiliang. Ugh, see this scene? Chen Daoxian sighed. Originally, this matter was the choice of the Zhou family, the choice of Zhou Muqing, and Chen Daoxian had neither the right nor the intention to intervene. But at the moment, Zhou Xiliang was about to fall in front of him. Chen Daoxian had to ask. Next moment, a star came first, and Wu Guangji's flying sword was slashed and flew out. Immediately after, Chen Daoxian escaped and stood in front of Zhou Xiliang. He cupped his hands and said, "Fellow Taoist Wu is a bit too vicious to kill the killer so painfully. Who are you? Dare to interfere in my Wu family's affairs?" Wu Guangji's face suddenly darkened. No. His heart had already set off a stormy sea, that star if he was not wrong. Jianxiu. Is Jianxiu. The people present were not uninformed. Someone immediately recognized Qin Daoxuan's method. Boom. This sentence immediately caused an uproar on the field. Sword repair. In addition to Zhou Mubai, Guang'an Mansion had a second sword cultivator. Shuanghu Island Qin family, Qin Daoxian. Qin Daoxian bowed his hands and said indifferently, I have no intention of interfering in the Wu family's affairs, but you can't move. Qin Daoxian pointed at Zhou Xiliang. Do not know why. Wu Guangyi breathed a sigh of relief after hearing that Qin Daoxian did not intend to interfere in his Wu family affairs. After all, the prestige of Jianxiu is too great in Wanxinghai and even in Xianyun continent. If Qin Daoxian insisted on intervening today, the Wu family really couldn't close. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.